9:04. We're going to get this Law Oversight Committee meeting started for December 10, 2019. I'm going to start with a call to order, noting that Gene Lawson, Pete Pisario, Sturgis Dodge, and Hoyte Decker are present. We'll leave the door ajar for Susan Wood. And now, oops, here we go. Leaving the door ajar just in time. We just got started, you good? So Susan Wood is in fact present. And so my next item of business is approval of minutes. We actually have two sets of minutes, which I distributed on two different occasions. In your packet, you will find the minutes for October 30. The minutes for September 25 will be added to this packet later. And so there are no changes in either document from what I distributed to you earlier in the year. So if I could, I'd like to get a motion for both, unless there are issues. So if I can get a motion from someone.
I move we accept both
Thank you,
sets of minutes.
Sturgis.
Well, I can't vote on the September 25th
Okay,
minutes,
all
so
right,
it should be separate.
I got you. Can I otherwise get a second for,
I second.
thank you. All right, and all those in favor say aye, please. Aye. And opposed, nay? All right, very good. And we'll get you a copy of the September 25 minutes as soon as we can. All right, I have no information about correspondence. I have no points to be made on organization. We have no citizens present, so we have no comments. And so I'm going to move right into the tree ordinance discussion, picking up on the proposal that Susan and Sturgis provided to us at our last meeting. And since then, I have attempted to do a red line, not a counter proposal, but a supplemental proposal to their documents. And I don't know how we want to proceed on it. I will note that Sturgis has provided some pretty comprehensive notes and suggestions to my red line proposal. But maybe for a start, I'd like to look towards Susan and ask if you have any thoughts or comments or reaction to what I added about 7 pages to your 3-page document, so.
I did, and I actually drafted up on my computer. I did not print it out because I
Okay.
didn't want to
Okay.
confuse things with another submittal at this point. But if you guys want to just go through, like I said, I spoke with Sturgis a little bit, so
Cool.
I'm gonna.
So if you would, I mean, let's go through it, but for ease of handling the thing, if you don't mind, could you send copies? Send a copy around to
Yep, I can do
us
that.
and maybe give Ann a thing to post up on the.
Yeah, I was gonna kind of wait and just to see, because like I said, I just think now we have 2 completely different drafts out there again.
Your call.
Well, actually, we have 3. We have mine, yours, and yours.
Right.
So there's 3 out there now. That's why I didn't know if posting another one was a good idea at this point. I figured, especially since mine's up for debate. Mine's much shorter still than yours. Your guys.
Is
so
it an
if
actual proposal? Is that what you're?
It's written, but I did not submit it for this
I
meeting.
understand.
I was just gonna go through it. If I can pull up my laptop here and pull it up on my screen, right?
Yeah, I think you
okay.
can, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Talk to
So
the expert over
Mine
here.
is just, it got to the point where I was trying to de-redline the red line, and I just decided
Can you,
to.
which, I'm going to try to word this. Which document are you referring to when you give your presentation? because there's so many documents that are floating around.
Right, which is why I didn't add another one. I thought about it, and I was like, I'm not gonna bring another
So
one
should
in.
I be looking at the one that Hoyt did, or the one that Sturgis did after
Well,
Hoyt's, or the one?
You have
the way
three
back when?
versions right now, as I see it. You have my very extremely condensed one that Hoyt built off of and Sturgis built off of, what we had done, and then she went back in. And I think it kind of just tumbles down into, I mean, they're still way better than the original one. We're still way shorter. I think mine, when it comes to the mitigation, that part throws in a whole bunch of other parts that I don't have in mine. So, and same, does that make sense? So, I mean, if you don't have the mitigation, then some of the definitions that are in there, I pulled those out. So I think we should just go through it. I think we're close, so.
Okay. So
Yeah.
are we gonna go through this one? Is this the one that we're jumping off of? Or we're going off the one that Sturgis and
Well, I think,
there's so many, that's what I'm saying, I don't even know where to.
I think where I got confused just reading it myself was whether in Hoyt, if you were redlining my version, not Sturgis's version, correct?
Well, okay, this is good, so this is like a Russian novel.
That's what I couldn't figure out, and I didn't want to
We
be
got all
taking
these
things
characters.
out that.
So let me
Sturgis-
tell you what my red line version is,
Okay.
and it's right in the title. So what I did was I took I had communicated with Sturgis at some point after our last meeting. And I asked her if she would put, and the sense was that the two of you would put something together to create one document. Okay, that's what I was looking for, was a document. And then subsequently, you provided me with a document. I don't know how much input Susan had to that
I'm
document.
getting a little fuzzy about the whole
Okay,
process.
all
I'll
right.
be real honest with you.
Well,
So I guess the question is, which one did you mark up? You marked up,
I'm trying to tell you. So
Okay.
what I marked up is the one that Sturgis had sent to me.
okay,
And
Since our last meeting.
since our last meeting, and if you look at the end of that thing, that should give you a name. Okay, in fact, wait a second there, what is that? End of this red line business. All right, at the very end, it says 2019 Tree Code Final Draft by Susan Wood, November 9, 2019, HD, meaning me, providing the version 4 edition of that. So if I could, I would suggest to you that version 1 was the thing that Susan did first. Version 2 was the two of them working together was Sturgis's version. I don't know, but I'm speculating. But then, more importantly, version 3 is the one that Sturgis sent to me. I don't know if you sent it to everybody or whether you just sent it to me.
I sent it to everyone.
Okay.
okay, so
That's the one that
I
you
guess
and
the
I
question then
did.
is, do we want to?
So that's the document that I then created this red line.
Do we want to add to mine, delete from Hoyt's, or do both to yours, Sturgis's? Where do you want to, what do you want to go over?
I think we're still in the discovery phase here. We're trying to discover what document we're working with. So, I mean, if everybody wants to look to see if they've got a document that's identified, I would think, as version 3, which should be Sturgis's. And she seems to suggest that she sent it to us, so maybe you can find it that way.
Yeah, I have lost that thread.
All right, let's see if I can
I
find
have
it
to
for
tell
you.
you, I've lost that thread.
Oops, let's see.
Boy,
Yes?
this is one of the reasons why that support document policy needs to be followed.
I agree, and I was attempting to follow it with the naming
So my
as
suggestion
I
is,
described, okay, go ahead.
so my suggestion is, if you have a starting point, that's version 1.
Yeah,
Whoever receives that to work on it, then that's version 2.
right.
And it's gotta be sent out to everybody, for everybody to see. Then the next person does version 3.
I agree.
And they all need to be labeled on the front of the document.
Right.
So to make it a lot easier for me, when I also have to embed them in the agenda.
That's right, I forgot. Yeah, let's go back to the beginning of that document.
So all we have here in today's pile is Hoyt's document.
This is
Yeah,
Hoyt's
the only thing you have in the packet
red line of,
is my red line version of the thing.
yeah.
Okay, well then,
Hey, may I just speak about this issue?
Yep.
Just to kind of let us move along?
Yep.
At this point, I don't really care what happened to mine, okay?
Yeah,
When I saw yours show up, and your edits, what I did was just kind of treat this as a document that,
you mean your notes, which are
when I
now in
saw-
this packet?
Yeah, when
Okay.
I saw your red line show up,
Mhm.
I kind of said to myself, okay, well, here's a document that combines the thoughts of a lot of us, and Hoyte has weighed in, and so I then went through and gave my thoughts in ways that I'd like to see it possibly be altered, and I'm prepared and content to work with what we have.
okay, well, let's just go through.
You know,
Hoyt's
I
then.
don't know how other people
When you
feel
say
about
what we
this.
have, you're
With-
talking
with
about my
your-
red
your
line document.
Exactly,
Okay.
your
Okay.
red line, and because in reviewing it, I didn't find objection to a lot of it, and there were just a few things that, for me, were maybe lost or could be refined in some ways, and so I came prepared to.
And that's
to-
what you.
Yeah,
So
I
for
came
clarity,
prepared
this
to
is the one we're gonna be working off of?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, that's
And that's the
all I
one that
wanted.
I worked off of as well,
Okay.
so.
All right.
If Sturgis, that's okay with you?
is that, no, that's
That's,
perfectly fine.
that's the one I worked off
That's
of
perfectly
So-
fine.
as well. So we're back to, Hoyt's, we're on to your draft, and are we gonna go through, starting with the first part and working our way down?
Yeah,
think that
so
makes sense.
let's start all over again. So my point was, since this was your document to begin with, I wanted you to have the opportunity to be the first one to speak about, you know, where we are today and presumably with the document that I submitted as a red line.
I think the easiest way to do it, and what I did, is I just started at the first section, started with the title, and just worked my way down. And then there's, like I said, when I got to definitions, I had to come back to them because some of them got eliminated when other parts of what I thought shouldn't be in there got eliminated.
Okay.
So I think that's probably the best thing to do, just start at the top and work our
All
way
right.
down.
So if I
That's
can.
what you did in your notes too.
I did,
Sturgis,
yeah, I
so-
just
So
started.
you don't have any overall or opening comments that you'd like to make?
No, the only opening comments that I have to make are regarding,
Mitigation.
mitigation.
Okay.
Yes, mitigation.
All right.
Mitigation, and my only opening comment on mitigation, any mitigation that involves paying for trees, paying to be able to take trees out, I think is a waste of time and unfair, because people are just gonna pay it. And that doesn't
Anyway.
say, paying to take trees out doesn't save trees. Okay, so I think that's my whole comment.
Good point.
Planting 3 small trees that are gonna die doesn't properly mitigate, in my judgment, taking down one large one that was there. So that's my whole thing, and that changes, that eliminates TBH, that eliminates
Why
caliper,
don't we
that
wait
eliminates
until we get to
mitigation.
mitigation and then we can.
Right, that
hammer
eliminates
that
all
in.
of those, so that's kind of what I was saying.
So,
Okay.
all right, so that's good. So now, second, do you have anything, Sturgis, is there anything you'd like to say as an opening remark? or
I mean, I could rebut what she's saying.
Well, no,
but,
no, no, no,
Go
I
ahead,
mean,
go
let-
for it. This would be
yeah,
a good
let-
time. so we're all
Let's get,
listening.
the-
Yeah, but I kind of
This
like
is-
to
this
wait
is
till
the
we get to
introduction
mitigation.
part
I like
here.
to wait till we get to
Okay.
mitigation.
All right,
Yeah, and I'm kind of commented, you know, overall, I mean, I'm perfectly willing to defer to Hoyt's vision or wisdom that we kind of put this back in kind of a more legally organized format, just for the purpose that you stated.
Okay.
And I don't have a problem with that at all, because I really think that you did it in as few words as you possibly could without leaving out
Right.
stuff. So
Okay.
I just
All right.
wanted to say that.
Thank you. So Jean, how about you? Do you have any opening or overall thoughts?
Well, no, because I just think we're spending years on this. And
Hey,
we
that's
get
why
all-
I've scheduled the meeting for tomorrow. I'm getting tired of that too.
What I'm afraid of is we're gonna come up with something, and we're gonna give it to the commission.
I hope so.
They're gonna spend a whole year on it also.
Good for them. We get it off our plate, I don't care.
I think we're getting a lot closer.
I think we're getting real
I
close.
think so too.
All right, so I don't mind typing this up as we go along, if that's okay with you guys.
You don't want to what?
I don't mind typing this up as we go along.
Typing up
Typing
changes
up
that
what we agree
kind of
on
agree
as
on
we go
we're
along.
going.
The only thing I could not do, unfortunately, because the way you formatted yours, is I can't do yours, so the spots when you add
Well,
it in,
so-
I'll have to retype, whatever's left of it.
If you will, and I'm happy to, come and work with you, but
I can
if
do it
you-
right
if you
while we're
will
talking.
allow me now?
Yep, let's go for it.
All right.
What do we call
I'll
this
accept
thing?
that one.
Chapter 253, what's it called?
Yeah, so Peter,
I'm gonna be quiet right now.
okay,
It's a surprise.
that's good, no, okay. All right, so if we can, let's begin with 253-1. Is that what
No,
we're
we
gonna
need
do?
a title.
Huh?
We have two different
Oh,
titles.
hey,
We
hey,
have Tree and
forgive me.
Landscape Code,
Title,
and we have
253.
Comprehensive Tree Ordinance.
Yep,
I have kind of one comment, and it's the thing about landscape, and I just kind of want to say the reason that Susan and I kind of put landscape and trees together
right,
is because Article 1 talks about landscaping.
the
It talks-
original.
Yeah, the original.
current
The
provision.
current provision in Article 1 talks about the city's responsibility for landscaping, and I think it may refer to, in some way, how Parks and Shade Tree might have been involved in that
Mhm.
originally.
Do you understand
I do,
the point that I'm trying to make? Is
but
that-
I'm just sort of wondering, does it not belong in here at all? Should it go somewhere else
I
entirely?
think it's superfluous, frankly.
Are we,
We're not making any requirements on
Right, we're
landscaping.
not- we're not-
I just don't see any value in it.
I guess what I'm saying is this, I mean, to me, trees and landscaping are kind of, I mean, landscaping other than trees is something separate. It's something different. It's like bushes and flowers
I
and
agree,
things.
yeah.
And,
But are we
I
gonna start
think-
regulating bushes?
well, we do currently. I mean,
Okay.
there are rules in there that say that the city,
I
is
question that
supposed to
too.
maintain those, and that
I'm not gonna argue that there
that they
isn't.
have the right to come in and, take them, if you
Yeah.
plant on their property, they can do things to it.
My
or
argument
get
is
rid of them
let's just stick with trees.
My recollection
struggling.
was the landscape part came up in the section of the code that said that you can't limit visibility going around a corner, and it went from trees to shrubbery and low-lying. That's when we said, okay, well, it's not just trees, it's landscaping, because it started talking about visibility. It's the only section in the code that I
Okay.
could think of. Sturgis, is there any other ones where landscape came up?
No, well,
So does that mean we have to have that in the title?
no, not necessarily.
was that in the final version?
That was in the
Yeah,
last
here,
version.
I'm gonna, from, the current code, 253-12, this is in Article 1, maintenance.
Yeah.
It says the city shall have the right, which is an odd statement to begin with, to plant, prune, and maintain and remove trees, plants, and shrubs within the lines of all streets, alleys, avenues, lanes, squares, and public grounds, for some kind of safety and beauty. So that's kind of the first place that shows up.
And you'll
And
find the term landscape in other provisions in there, but again, what I'm saying is it's not, I don't feel it's substantive enough. The current chapter is titled trees.
Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
isn't that what I suggested, that it be called trees? Yeah, trees.
Yeah, you did.
Trees, but I added a comprehensive tree ordinance. I mean, if we don't want that in there, I'm good with that too.
You mean, if you wanted to drop.
If you wanted to drop comprehensive and ordinance, I'm happy to drop that.
Oh. Well, right now in your version, there's no reference to landscaping at all.
Right.
And, I don't know if we wanna figure out some way to put that back in or not. You're kind of saying no. I don't know how Liz or the city.
How do you
might
guys feel about having the term landscaping in there?
Have that,
I
have
think
some.
it's just adding more complication to it.
I think it opens the door, if they want to add something related to landscape, it can go in this code and they don't need another one, section.
I also think that if the city needs to have the right, for lack of a better word, to tear down a shrub that's 8 feet tall on the corner of Bloomington and Delaware, so you can see when you're coming out, they have that right to do so. Where else would it be in the city code other than in this ordinance?
And a lot of landscaping codes have in them, like when you build a parking lot, you have to have a green space in between parking spaces and things like that, which is something that if we ever start building some more parking lots, they
So-
should definitely have here. And that would give a spot in the code to put it, because that is definitely landscaping
So
and not trees.
again, I must say, I have no issue with that provision. I mean, the provision that you're describing is already in there.
It's in the original code.
It's in the current code.
Right. That's what I
Right.
meant.
Yeah, your red line doesn't have any reference to landscape, so if we left it in the title, that's all I'm saying. If we decided it should be in there, we're gonna have to draft.
I think
some
that's where we
language.
are. We're working on the title. So
Got
what
it.
should the title be? Should it be
I
trees and
think-
landscape?
I think we need to leave landscape in there.
I think we need to leave landscape in
And
there.
then
You think what?
we need to leave landscape in, and we have to come up with some.
I think
a line.
comprehensive tree and landscape ordinance is fine.
I think it's good.
Comprehensive tree and landscape ordinance?
Isn't that?
Yep.
And if we get through the end of this and we decide we don't want landscape it in based on everything else that's in it, we'll pull it out again.
I'm just
All right.
gonna write a note that.
Take that in.
Yeah,
You want comprehensive and ordinance in and code out?
yeah.
Got it.
Need item addressing.
All right. Purpose? 253-1?
I'm okay with that.
I am okay with adding what Hoyte added.
Actually, that's Sturgis's
Yeah.
addition.
Or Sturgeon's.
But that's cool.
And that's something I think we all said was okay last meeting. I think that's a left.
I'm
that's a
good with section
leftover.
one, the way it's
Okay.
written with Sturgis's addition.
All right.
Okay.
Look at us go, we're on number 2.
Gene, you good?
Actually, I'm trying to figure out why we should be putting the finding and purpose in there, because it's sort of the commission's duty, not ours.
Well, and that's kind of, I forget where I made that same point. I guess it was under applicability. You know, when this goes to them, they're gonna
They may
put their own
rewrite it.
language in
They
there.
may rewrite
So
that.
my thought is, I'm not gonna worry about either one of these.
Right,
I'm actually using the applicability section that's in the current code.
right,
And, you know, if they want to change it, then, you know, it's fine.
got it. I have no,
Do
I have,
we,
yeah.
you know, Gene, you're making an excellent point that we may want to have some, and I'm not gonna put this burden on you, Susan,
Okay.
but you've said this before, is that we may want to have some kind of explanatory notes that go with these changes that we're suggesting.
well, previous
So-
code revisions have
Yeah, no, I know.
included a
Yeah.
cover letter
But
that
I'm,
says,
what I'm
yeah, that's kind of
specifically, I'm referring to Gene's comments,
Right,
so.
got it.
And I'll try and draft something up on that at some point down the road. We're not gonna worry about that right now. Gene, okay?
Yeah.
Try and reflect your thoughts on it, because I kind of share what you're talking about. All right, let's get into these definitions. So what I was doing here, I added as I went through the process of redlining the document, I created definitions that I felt were used in you know, the substantive sections of the ordinance and stuck them in here. And so, I'm gonna give you a little story about native tree, but, I mean, it's a term that's used in this thing, but there's more to tell you about native tree. So anyway, I'll cede the floor that anybody wants to comment on any of these things. And probably the most controversial will be protected tree, but anyway.
Yeah, I did make some comments about protected tree.
Yeah, that's in your notes, yeah.
Yeah,
You can make them
you
now.
ready to
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Let me see.
When we approve section 2,
Yeah.
I think we
We
kind of
kinda-
skipped over
We
it.
waived it. We're using
I'm
the
good with
Gene
it.
Lawson theory on
I'm good with it.
You're skipping over completely the.
that.
Applicability.
But
I
if you
mean-
have specific concerns, you know, I'm sorry, we can go back.
I thought there was a bunch of stuff in there that didn't need to be in there.
In
Okay.
applicability?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Such as?
Sorry.
I had the first sentence, and then basically just summarized the last three, everything up to emergencies as part of the first sentence, basically.
Well, just read what you think it should, how it should
I
read.
don't have it on my screen, but I'll tell you basically what it said. The provisions in this chapter apply to all land in the municipal boundaries. So I had the provisions of this chapter apply to all activities. And then I kind of put like a, you know, regarding trees in the municipal boundaries of the city of Rehoboth Beach, period. So activities, and then just pick the brief description of them. It eliminates B, C, and D, and then the emergency one, like I said, I almost had it in just one sentence, but so it basically, it would read, the provisions of this chapter apply to all land, all activities, okay? And then in some way, you would say what B, 1, 2, and C say, all activities
Well, that's
relating
specific,
to
that's specific to tree
existing and
removal, though.
proposed trees.
That's specific to tree removal now. I
But-
think that's a pretty key.
The code's basically applicable to all activities regarding existing or proposed landscaping. Do we really have to say everything that is gonna come back in it? Because that's what the code is about, activities related to existing or proposed landscaping.
What happened to trees?
Trees and
You could put
landscaping,
trees and
excuse me.
landscaping.
All right.
Does that say
Yeah,
the
okay.
same thing?
All right.
Because in the code, it's
I mean,
saying that,
as to emergencies, I know it appears at the very end, there's a specific provision for this. Also something in there, I think it's on the tree replacement. And frankly, having it in here, I don't feel is that it's not really warranted. You know, it's a standalone issue and we cover it later. I don't know that there's a need for it.
Do you feel though, I mean, I'm just a reflection was your thought that the applicability would be helpful to people looking at the code and having
Yeah.
sort of everything that follows is related to these things?
Yeah.
You want to do any of these
Yes.
things, this is
That's what
this is why
that's
you
what,
gotta,
that's
this
the
why
purpose.
this is why you have to read further.
Right.
And so for me, you know, I thought all of that was helpful and made sense.
Oh,
and
so you
that-
wouldn't reduce it, is what
I
you're saying?
wouldn't.
I,
mean,
I prefer a list than a
I
paragraph.
prefer the list. I
so
don't
leave
think
the whole
it,
thing?
I like it just the way it is, only
Okay.
because.
Okay.
Well, I can
think
leave
it-
the emergency thing in there too.
No,
I'm-
I would leave it in there.
The
because-
emergency thing, I think, should
Yeah.
definitely be in there.
Yeah,
Should not.
Should.
Yes.
should.
Okay.
If I was gonna do one edit, let me see what it is.
Wait a minute. No, because we had the emergency thing in another section, that's why I took it out.
There's at least
Yeah,
two
but
other
The
instances.
emergency thing is already in the code somewhere else.
It is, the only
But she's
reason-
saying it needs to be
The
highlighted.
only reason that I like it right up front is this is almost like, is almost like a little synopsis.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
right,
and it's
you're
so,
right.
if some person, layperson, whatever, is looking at this, it's like, okay,
I agree.
you know, I got the whole thing right here. And I don't know, I think, to me, having more verbiage here, it actually makes this more
All right.
usable and reader friendly.
So
than making
do
it
we have a
complicated.
consensus, or do we need a show of hands, or?
I do have one edit,
Okay.
and it was B1. I don't know why, just in my mind, private maintenance or planting of, nope, I'm good, I'm fine. Now, I was thinking private planting or maintenance instead of private maintenance or planting, but it really doesn't matter. It's kind of six of one and.
To me, it limited what the city arborist did.
You
It
think
limited it?
this limits it?
Well, I just think, are you
I
gonna
think it
list, if
enunciates
you
it.
start listing one thing, you have to list a bunch more things.
I think this is inclusive.
I think we're struggling too hard
I
here.
think
Again, I'm
it's
gonna tell you,
inclusive.
it's
Okay.
been my experience that the decision makers are gonna make the decision about this, and we can put all this in here we want to, and Glenn Mandels is gonna go down a different path, and they're all gonna go, yep.
I think it's really, I don't think it leaves anything out, and I really don't think it limits what Liz can do, because it just says activities that require.
All right, so explain to me private maintenance or planting of trees on public lands.
Essentially, we're talking
So-
about street trees that people have planted and that they're caring for themselves. And the city arborist is supposed to approve people planting street trees. And I know that our current code says that they're not supposed to do anything to street trees with any pruning without her approval. So, I mean, I don't know.
I vote that we should look at that after we write the rest of it and just see if it matches what we have when we're done.
We can come back, I mean, we're
I
gonna
think we
do
need-
it,
I
we're
think we
gonna
need to
do
come
a
back to
final review, I would
Right.
expect.
Just because
So
that's
we'll leave it like it
just
is
be
for now,
one
huh?
of the
My
whole
only
thing.
question is if you're gonna have,
the whole thing.
I agree with Susan that it's almost limited.
Okay.
Because right now, this doesn't apply to the city arborist's control over public trees. The public planting of
So
public
would
trees.
you
So
wanna
I
put
would
an
add-
edit in there that says
I don't wanna
public
do anything
input?
right now.
Um,
I'm
Okay,
agreeing that
okay,
maybe as we go
okay,
along, we
alright.
have to revise it.
I think
Alright.
number one is very confusing. I
Alright.
don't think it tells you what it's,
Good catch, Pete.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
We should come back to that, I think, when we're,
okay.
Um,
So definitions, we back on definitions?
okay, so review.
Definitions, I
Point of
think-
information, because this is gonna come up in about 2 seconds. The city arborist asked me, you know, she's got other things on her plate. When it would be good for her to come, I said, why don't you give us an hour or so,
Oh, okay.
and then if you could come in then, so.
all right, so for definitions, again, caliper and DBH, that is something that would be determined after you guys get through the mitigation section. High canopy tree, I thought was already defined. Native tree, to me, was obvious. And
Okay.
natural area is, I just had a question on that.
You have a question?
Well, just because natural area, if you're gonna leave a definition, I think it could stay. Protected tree, that's a whole nother thing that is
Yeah,
separate.
let's set that aside for the moment.
So basically, I had high canopy tree was already defined, tree was too obvious to put in there, native tree was too obvious to put in there. And then I even cut topping out, just because it's also defined somewhere else in there. But,
Well, I think it's appropriate to have it in the definitions. You might address the issue later, but I think you need to define it.
are we gonna add to the definitions, though?
Yeah,
The
I'm
old
open
code
to
had a
additions.
bunch
In
of,
fact, I have an addition to make based on the comments that Sturgis gave us the other day. And that is, I'm using a term that I think goes back to whatever draft, I don't know. But the term is public, I forget what it's, public public or public tree. And regrettably, I don't have that here in front of me today, and I don't know if I could yank it up, I can try. But that is a critical omission that needs to be in the definitions. Because if you're buying into my concept of the way the code will operate, you have private and public, portions of the tree ordinance. It's not a separate article, but you address public and private as specific issues, and public needs to be defined. So I'll give you that. Let me tell you a little story about nature, native trees. So, I'm sorry, hang on, natural area, forgive me, native trees. My definition of native tree, just to expand on that, it flowed from the discussion in the last meeting where we were talking about South Coast or coastal and all this business. And so Liz at some point said, I think it's basically what's in Delaware. So that's kind of where my native tree definition came from. So, all right, natural area. So again, after the last meeting, I was looking for a way to address the legitimate concerns that Susan and Sturgis raised about, I forget the terminology that you guys were using, but it was commercial, mixed use, R1, R2, R1S, whatever the hell it is. All these different categories or districts or whatever it is of lots, okay? And so it dawned on me that, maybe if we reverse the whole process, if we stop worrying about 1,666 in 2/3 square feet of a parcel that is 5,000 square feet to begin with, maybe we wouldn't have to worry about commercial mixed use and all that thing. So I came up with this creative idea of defining natural area as a component of a lot, okay? So the way the rule reads right now, it's essentially 50% of your property must be natural area, okay? Well, most people have a sidewalk in front of their house, and that's roughly another 250 or whatever square feet. Plus you gotta have parking for 2 vehicles off-street, and that's another, I forget, it's 400 and something square feet. So what I was able to do is to say with a 5,000 square foot lot, if you had 600 and whatever it was, 600 square feet, you would basically, 800 square feet. 800 square feet would get you to 2,400 square feet, which is essentially half the lot. You with me? Okay, 5,000 square feet, half is 2,500. I'm talking about 24 at 800 per tree. 800 square feet, you gotta have a tree. Then I dropped it back to 600 square feet because I had to put in 2 parking places and a sidewalk. All right? So I took that to Liz, and she said it'll never happen because every time you want to do that, you got to have a survey, and a survey costs $1,000. So unless somebody's got new construction where the survey is, part and parcel, if you wanted to remove a tree, okay, and you don't have a current survey, you snooze. But so I just wanted you guys to know that I had done that, and I thought it was a great idea. It just won't fly. Okay. So I'll put it on the table. Maybe somebody can come up with some other concepts.
So, no, what are you talking about doing with natural area? Leaving it there or taking it out?
Huh?
What are you talking about doing with natural area? Leaving it in or taking it out?
Well, the definition, I think, is appropriate in there because we talk about, I forget where, there's somewhere elsewhere in the ordinance.
But the definition of natural area is also in the zoning code,
Yeah, it is in the zoning code.
which would have precedence over this code.
Is it a different
Yeah, it is.
definition?
Oh, I'm sure it is.
This is a very vague
Because
definition.
it involves the FAR and all that stuff.
Okay, I mean, if you want to scratch it, I'm good with that.
Oh, we've got
I
to
just don't think we should have
substitute
things
something.
defined twice
for it.
differently.
Don't want that.
I'm looking at,
Don't want that, I agree.
I'm looking at the last attempted revision by the Planning Commission. And they had natural area, and they defined that as that portion of the gross lot area that is dedicated to either trees, grass, flowers, bushes, other plantings, and/or mulched areas as further defined in 270-4, which is the zoning
Which is what he,
code.
what is,
Yeah, it's zoning code.
Do we have that?
Hoyte can pull it up.
so.
Can I make a suggestion? Or would it be not better if we didn't finish writing the code and then go back and define what we think isn't already defined in the code?
Frankly, I'm persuaded
Because-
by Gene's suggestion that we scratch that particular definition in favor of simply letting the code speak for itself as it is identified in 270.
This is natural.
When I look for that right now.
Uh-huh.
Is that phrase used in your red line version, Hoyte?
The term natural area
Natural
comes
area.
up
Is it
in the ordinance. I forget whether it was there before I got to it or what, but.
I know, I mean, if we're not using it in our current language, we wouldn't define it in our definitions.
That's what I'm saying. Maybe we should come back to definitions after we read
Yeah.
the code and go,
Right.
what does it make sense? What?
Agree with
Because
that.
again, high canopy tree is already defined, so why leave it in there if
Well,
it's already
you wanna-
defined?
you
Or
wanna
you
have
gotta
it-
define everything.
You want to have, from a legal standpoint, you do want to have definitions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that someone can't come back
Right,
later and
right.
say, well, it's not really there.
Yeah, thank you.
But
But
why
you
don't-
also don't want to
Why
have
don't we write
conflicting
the
definitions.
code then,
I
and then
agree.
come back and
And then
retake
plug in the
whatever words we
definitions.
put in the code and make that the definition?
I-
Instead of writing the definitions and then trying to stick them in and.
Let's
make them
not
make
scratch it,
sense.
let's put a box around it.
Yeah,
So
So-
you're saying we should actually go to the substance before form?
yes.
Okay.
Did I say that? I said, that's how an attorney would say it. I think that's what I said.
Well, just to
I said
finish a
skip the
point,
definitions and write the code and then go back. I think
Yeah.
that's the same thing.
if I may, finish a point. To Gene's suggestion, natural area is defined in 270.4. It sounds like, what you just read.
It may-
That portion of the gross lot area that is dedicated to either trees, grass, flowers, bushes, or other plantings and/or mulched areas. For the purpose of calculating natural area, mulched area shall be limited to the use of vegetative ground covers and shall not include the use of clamshells, decorative stone, or other similar hard materials.
I don't see
Okay.
a
That's
reason.
fine.
Gene, I recognize that last sentence.
Good thing we left landscape in the title.
All right.
I mean, my thought is if we
So-
want a definition of that in here, even though it's somewhere else in the code, we might, I don't see any reason why we couldn't just replicate what's
Yeah,
right
that's-
there. Make
That
it
goes to the
consistent.
brevity issue.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah, I mean, and just to make it consistent within the entire.
Part of the purpose of this review of this ordinance, from what my understanding is that if I want to do something to my lot, I can go to one section, 253, and all the information I need is here. I don't have to go flipping through the entire
Yeah.
city
Okay.
code.
Okay.
I would prefer that personally.
So let's come back to that when we get to the natural area, and let's do the same thing for protected trees when we get to tree removal,
Okay,
all right?
so we'll just postpone review.
And
it
hey,
then.
you gotta be jumping in here with your notes too, we're over here.
Well, but I'm kind of.
Oh, I see, okay. All right, all right,
I'm kind of following
okay. Yeah.
Susan's lead by saying, let's look in the substance and then come back
Okay.
and refine the definitions.
All right, so should we move on to city arborist and the
Mhm.
provisions on that?
Mhm.
Susan, you got some thoughts on that one?
I'm trying to juggle both of these here. I can't, unfortunately, your red lines still don't show up in what I'm trying to do. Wait. City arborist?
You got a thing right here, isn't it?
Yeah, I do. I was just trying to do it on here at the same
Your little-
time.
your little packet.
For some reason, I don't know why it won't show up. But
You didn't have any comments on this?
I did,
Oh, you did? Oh, okay.
I did.
Oh.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
and it's, for me, it was, there were actually two. The
Oh,
most.
I'm sorry, there it is. right
Yeah,
there.
the most substantive one is that I really do want the city to review their
Yeah.
forestry plan annually. I just feel leaving it open-ended, as updated as necessary, I don't know, that makes me uncomfortable. I don't see why it shouldn't be updated or reviewed annually.
I don't mean to be a smart aleck, but
Okay.
I have to go back to the current language
Uh-huh,
in the current code,
okay,
which has very specific requirements for this concept,
okay,
which in however many years, since 2006, whenever this document was created in the first place, there has
Article one.
never been a review.
That's
Okay.
true, there has not.
So I had conversations at some point, some while back, and now, I mean, I know it included Liz, and I think it may have also included the city manager, but I don't want to stick it to her needlessly. But my sense was they wanted the discretion of seeing it when it would be
Yeah.
done. And I think there's another important element here
Okay.
that is not reflected in the ordinance, and I'm not sure it should be. But I see the role
Mhm.
or the function of the Mayor's Advisory Committee, of which you were a member, on trees, should be playing a part
Yeah.
in the creation and the updating and whatnot of that document.
It could, it's not currently charged with
I know,
doing that.
I'm recognizing that, but,
And-
and
and
I
it-
don't know that it belongs in this.
Yeah,
It may not belong in this code, but that's not to say that the Board of Commissioners could direct that committee
they
to
could.
undertake that responsibility.
Let me play devil's advocate.
Please.
Okay. If we require the city arborist to do a yearly update or review,
Uh-huh.
and there's nothing for her to update or review, then he or she is spinning wheels. I think the language here is such that the city manager can say, okay, you need to update the plan. I mean, this is a mile square city. How many times does she have to update a plan? I'm not trying to be
No,
sarcastic.
no, I hear.
But I don't want to force somebody to do
And-
something doesn't have to be done.
And I'm glad you said that, because that is the sense, that's my recollection of what these guys were saying.
But I agree with Sturgis 1,000% that the city arborist should be reviewing this plan at least, every day, what's going on.
Well,
But to require a plan to be developed and submitted once a year.
I think as she performs her functions,
Right.
there's gonna be she goes out, she does an inspection, or she does that. And there's gonna be a consequence to some of these activities that she's undertaking. And the net result of that is, that should be in the urban tree plan, or that, this section of the city needs attention here, and so that should be in the, that's the way I see the thing getting updated.
Can I be anti-devil?
Yeah.
You can do this, just what I.
You can be uncle.
Okay. I guess I kind of see this as less of a burden
I'll be right back.
than as a possible support for the arborist to develop a plan that she can then take to the city and ask for budget items and funding so that improvements can be done. And things can be, I don't know, that's kind of how I saw this, is that this could be a tool for her to use to go to the city and say, this is what I would like to do this year, and I'm gonna need, or this is my 5-year plan, or it formalizes it in such a way, I think it could support that her department to get things funded so that improvements are made.
Well, that's a good, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, Yeah.
So if she's going to the city every year with saying, I need $40,000, or I need this or that, she should have a plan to back it up. Is that what you're going with?
Yeah, I mean, because right now, she does have a plan every year. And it's, you know, if she will report on it, or she'll, you know, if asked, she'll tell you, and it usually has to do with maintenance and replanting. And, but there are other things. I mean, you know, we have commercial streets in town that don't have any street trees. I mean, thinking Wilmington Avenue and Baltimore Avenue are two streets that need some real attention in order to turn those into tree-lined streets. We've got a Rehoboth Avenue that severely challenges the thriving of trees on the avenue, but those are things that that could take a lot of money and could take a number of years to kind of put in place. And
But requiring a plan, excuse me, does not mean that she has to put any trees on Rehoboth Avenue or Wilmington Avenue.
she doesn't necessarily have to, but she could write a plan for a year or
Is there a
numerous
plan now?
years, or I believe there is a plan.
There's a document.
There is a document. I don't know how. I'm not
It's
really
never-
sure what's in it.
It's never seen the light of day.
It is available somewhere, sometime, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I know the current code says that the Parks and Shade Tree is supposed to develop this and review this annually and present it to the city. That group has never done that. But in the original vision, there would be such a thing.
So,
So.
I can see both ways, but I'm also gonna say it's
Yeah.
the city manager's job to direct the city arborist.
Got it,
This is your job description.
got it.
You need to bring me a plan every year, every 18 months or whatever. I don't know if this is the place to put an
To be
annual
as
plan.
specific as that.
I don't disagree with
Yeah,
you. The
yeah.
outcome should be, there should be a written plan that anyone in the public can go and see.
and,
Mhm.
and
I
there-
agree with that, but I don't know if it belongs in this ordinance.
And there may well be an expectation on the part of the city manager that as part of the budget process,
Mhm.
that the city arborist would be providing some annual update
There would have to be,
of,
right?
yeah, you know, you want more money, you know, tell me why.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So, all right, so,
I'd be okay. I'll
Yeah.
give on that.
I mean,
That's necessary.
I agree with your outcome. I mean, I
Yeah,
would like to see
yeah.
a plan
I
that's
just,
constantly modified and
we'll
updated.
put that in the notes. Let's
Okay,
put that in the notes.
okay,
You can do the
okay.
notes.
minority
kidding.
report,
Kidding.
minority
Hey,
report.
we can do that too.
There you
I've
go.
spoken on that previously.
There you
And
go.
I don't know if anyone else's notes, but my draft has OF6 in line 78.
Oh, yeah, there's a little
Tell me.
typo in there.
Did you do a draft?
There's a weird little typo.
I mean, my thing here, what I'm looking at.
It's just a typo.
There's a
Just a
typo
typo.
in C.
So Mayor, I have a question for you.
My red line is what you're talking
Yeah.
about.
Yes, I'm not,
Yeah, did you
Just for-
catch that, Susan?
Yes, I already
Okay,
had changed, I had
okay,
changed that
okay,
last
okay,
night.
okay.
It says
you gotta watch
of
some
6
of that
instead
stuff.
of. But question for you.
We're still on the overst?
Well, yes, but again, I'm going to question that, city arborist has a section. Is it not a definition?
You think the city arborist should be a
I believe
definition?
city arborist was a definition in the original code at some
Yeah,
point,
it
wasn't it?
was, yeah.
Okay, so now it's its own section. And in the draft Sturgis and I did, it was defined in 253-6. So,
Are you
I'm
saying,
assuming you,
are you saying there's a need for a definition of city arborist?
I'm saying, could it be a definition instead of another section, or do you want to leave it as a section?
Oh, no, I think it had,
Because Sturgis
So-
and I had it in ours as, basically, I'm back in yours again.
so I view these provisions as what I will term action items. And so they're requirements. And so they require you to do certain actions or not to do certain actions, okay? Which is distinguishable from saying a city arborist is a person who wears a gray suit or, you know, whatever the hell
Now, what we had written was tree permits and tree survey, protection, planting plans shall be required and reviewed as per this code by a city arborist who is an employee of the city and is responsible for the permitting, inspection, and enforcement of the city's Chapter 253 Tree and Landscape Code, as well as creating and updating a city tree and landscaping plan that addresses public property. Such person shall have at least 2 years' experience. So we had that under.
So with respect, what I was trying to do there was to organize it in a fashion that made it clear that these are functions, these are responsibilities, and these are requirements. Boom, boom, boom.
Did you
Rather
follow
than
the
just
format
kind
of
of
the
a
existing code?
statement that,
Is it following the format of the existing code? Is that where you,
I don't know. I don't think so.
is that why you put it in that order?
If it's following anything, it's probably following a section that was developed probably by Sandy, maybe Julie Davis, and I at some point way back when. I don't know if Gene was involved in that, but I mean, it's flowing from that.
All right, so if you have city arborist as 253-4, would protected tree be, would it make sense for protected tree in the definition above to be 253.3?
No.
You don't need
What I like about the way this is laid out is that when I was talking to Sturgis about this whole thing a while ago, you jumped around. I mean, all of a sudden it's a
Yeah, I guess that was
definition
what I
in
was saying.
section 11. And it's like, okay, well, shouldn't that be someplace above? The reason why the city arborist shouldn't be a definition is because you're giving the city arborist powers.
And you're enumerating those
So,
powers.
in 71 through 73, I guess, that would be a definition, if you just wanted to have a definition. But parts B and C are giving her specific powers, which to me, again, just from a standpoint of I'm trying to get information, this tells me everything I need to know about the city arborist, right there. So I'm flipping through the code real quick and I want to find something about the city arborist. Everything I want to know is in that section. I don't have to flip around in different sections. When it's talking about tree removal or mitigation or whatever it is, it's all right there.
Okay, so then should it say in there that she is responsible for coming up with the tree list?
No, because it's, oh, wait a minute.
No, I think you're
Yeah,
right. I think you're right.
Instead of being in a definition above under protected tree, it says a species permitted or written authorization by the city arborist. Yes, it's not under city arborist. That's what I'm saying, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it?
I agree with you.
Okay, that's what
I do too.
that's-
That's a
So
good
Who the hell wrote this
That's
thing?
So
a really good catch.
If, basically you're defining city arborist is
Yes.
what I'm getting to. And
Yep.
you've already, in the definitions above, listed something the city arborist does that's not in the definition of the city arborist section, right?
You define it and
Okay.
empower.
Okay, all right. So, one more time, just for the author over here that's typing away, or the typist who can't type. City arborist remains a separate section. Definitions, we're still coming back to, but under protected tree definition, a species permitted by 25-6 or written authorization of the city arborist.
I mean, I don't think
Where do
need
you
to-
see that?
Somewhere-
It's under protected.
We're
tree.
under 253-4.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think, Susan, we need to pull that out of there, but I agree with you that it would make sense to sort of add, you know, that she maintains
Wasn't that in one of your,
species
Yeah.
list.
yeah, I think that should be number D or someplace in that
Okay.
section 4. I totally agree with you on
All
that.
right, and do you guys think that all those words saying in A, B, and C are necessary before I type them all?
Yes. You don't have to type them up, cut and paste.
I'm trying to, but unfortunately it didn't work that way. I don't know what format you use, but
Or
I
you
can't
could
do it.
just make a little note in there. and
Yeah,
say,
I'll get it.
okay.
So, but what I'm saying is, the city arborist shall exercise the powers of inspection, surveying. She doesn't survey.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay, she doesn't do
She
survey.
doesn't literally
If you're gonna be
survey.
that specific, you either have to be 100% accurate in here, or you gotta just be the city arborist shall exercise the powers.
I think that's how you
She doesn't survey.
You know, she'll be here in a few minutes, we should ask her. I think she considers her activities to include surveying. By surveying, she means she's looking at the property.
But that's inspection, so that's redundant.
Okay,
I'm just saying, we got a lot of
Okay.
words in there. Do you need
All
all
right.
those words?
sure.
And
Okay.
surveying is a little bit confusing.
Same thing above, with 2 years' experience, arboriculture, forestry, horticulture, landscape architecture, or a related field. Do we need all of those
You
words?
know what, if the city arborist job is something that the city has defined, or the city manager has defined, it should just be the city arborist as an employee of the city, or a person retained by the city on a contractual basis, period. If you really wanna cut down on those words, we're not here to define her job, that's. the
Her
city-
job description.
Her job description, so I would say you could, at the end of line 71, the word basis, put a period and cut the rest of it out. I mean, of A.
The other thing that's kind of interesting is if she's someone having 2
Yeah,
years.
do we need that in the code? Do we need a
experience.
personnel
No, you don't.
description in the code?
She's
You're
just an
you're
employee of
making
the
a very
city.
good point.
I was saying who the city arborist is.
Yeah.
Well, she's an employee of the city or someone appointed by the city, period.
I got it, but does this tell us?
That's what I'm getting at. There's a lot of words. I'm not saying take it, I'm just saying there's a lot of words in
I'm
Does
open
this-
to
I
it.
would
I'm open
advocate
to
Does
it.
this tell the city?
Just don't tell her. Oh.
Does this-
there. Okay, again, we had perfect timing, right on cue. A city arborist is an employee of the city and is responsible for the permitting, inspection, and enforcement of the city's chapter 253 Tree and Landscape Code, as well as creating the tree and landscape plan.
Could we ask you a question, Liz? Do you know does your job description match the description we've sort of created, this description in here of the city arborist? We're trying to decide whether we need to repeat city arborist here, or if the city already describes
I don't
you in
know. I
that
mean,
way.
typically,
Mhm.
I think the building officials are described in the code, right? I believe.
You mean what their qualifications are?
You mean in 270 they're described? in that
I
kind of
believe
thing?
so. We've looked at that before, I think.
Okay, well, so maybe we should say it should be consistent with other, I mean, I don't
You know,
know.
I would say-
I am fine.
I kind of agree with your
with-
concept.
I'm fine with 253 for the way it's written, with the addition of it's her job, or the city arborist's job to create a species list.
Great, right. to
I'm
maintain
done with it
species
either
list.
way. If you want to take out words, take out words.
Yeah,
Okay.
that-
I do like it as a.
Well, I don't
single
think you
section.
need my job, I don't think you need C in there, but you need to, definitely need B. Whether or not you can reduce some of A.
Well, I think we were talking
Yeah.
about line 72 and 73.
Just scratching
They need
those.
to be in there.
Line 72.
Having at least 2 years' experience in that.
It limits, I mean, when we originally discussed it, we had the description of the ability to obtain the ISA certification was our original, and then I think that's what we came to when we were talking to Sharon, and then somehow in the midst it got changed to must possess, which I think is unnecessary. If you have the ability to obtain it,
Mhm.
then that's not a problem.
What about the idea of an urban forestry plan?
I don't think my job description needs to be in here. This just needs to
Okay.
give me powers to enforce the code.
That's what Peter's saying.
Okay. Do you think that having an urban forestry plan should be mentioned in the tree code? Not at all.
No, not unless one existed and you would say it's in, like, you would refer to it in part of like the purpose or intent section.
Do you think stating that the city needs to have one should be in here, be
No.
in the tree
It
code?
has nothing, no, I don't think that's relative to it.
Huh, okay.
So you don't think there should be a,
Urban forestry plan.
Surges, you are being awfully quiet.
No,
No, I didn't say that. I don't think it belongs in our code.
Oh,
Yeah. If anything, that would be in like a CDP or something like that.
huh, okay, because it's in the current code in Article 1. Remember, it was a parks and shade tree
It's-
function.
giving power to the Parks and Shade Tree
Was-
to develop and administer our plan.
Yeah. And since we're kind of taking that away from them, we were like, we didn't want
Well,
to
it's not
throw
taking,
it out.
they never have.
They've
So-
never done it, so it was like,
I don't
we
think
didn't,
it's
we
taking
didn't want to
anything away.
abandon it. We just wanted to maybe put it where it would more logically be done.
So
And
is
that's
there a
why it
plan,
ended up with you.
is there any plan that the city has to?
There's never been a presented urban forest plan to the commissioners now.
Any kind of plan for trees and landscape in the city?
Like, and that would be an urban forest plan or community tree plan now.
Then how do you get money for a budget?
Wait, what?
I mean,
Like a
I'm being-
maintenance plan?
I'm being naive.
Oh, well,
I'm not challenging you, I'm just
It,
curious.
no, I'm confused by your question because they're not, I mean, I guess they could be related, but an urban forest management plan is very similar to like a like basically you take portions of the CDP and expound on it. So you would do your mission, your vision, your background, your needs assessment, your inventory, and then you would come up with goals, objectives, and implementation timetable. I mean, it could be a document anywhere from 20 to like 120 pages. So it's not, you would have budgetary things in it in the implementation, but the budget is more, I think what you're talking about is in the maintenance plan, like what trees get pruned and the CIP, like what landscaping
That's your
gets
current
repaired.
budget, that's your current budgeting
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, so you have
And
to
those are
have,
public trees you're talking about, right?
yeah, public trees. What streets get pruned on what basis and what landscaping is, we have budgeted for re-landscaping a certain triangle area in the CIP for, 42,000 or something like that.
So to Pete's point about the line 71 and put a period at basically at the end of it, let me just read you the 270-81 qualifications of building inspector. A person appointed to fill the office of building inspector shall be known as the building inspector. He shall be at least 18 years of age, of good moral character, and a graduate of high school or a accredited preparatory school, and shall have a thorough knowledge of the trades of building, construction, and carpentry.
Wow.
So I think we're in good shape on line 7.
But again, just because the rest of the code is ridiculous doesn't mean ours.
No, I
has to
know,
be
okay, well,
ridiculous.
good.
You know what I'm saying? Just
Yeah.
because that's what they're saying in
Good.
there, we're not even gonna get to that code. So,
How's Dom doing, by the way?
Good, from what I hear.
Is he here or is he off?
No,
Okay,
he's on that leave.
okay.
Is he 18?
Yep, a bit, yeah. And
All right,
so,
where are we, guys?
Give or take a couple years.
Yeah.
So can we decide how we're gonna do paragraph A?
where are you, Pete?
I'm on line 71 still.
Okay.
Put a period.
Are we gonna truncate it
Yeah,
at
yeah,
basis, or do
definitely.
we wanna
I
do
it
what she
looks to me
said
like
and add
we
the
can, and,
ISA?
yeah, and the way you said it, that what was your language?
Should be able to
Potential
attain.
should be able to attain or,
Yeah, that's kind of what Sharon wanted.
Yeah, because
City.
that's saying if you want somebody qualified, sometimes you have to allow them time to take the test. That's all.
Okay.
But you need to have the previous experience in order to qualify for the test. So you don't want to
Right.
get somebody that's never worked in the field before, has no degree, and
Right.
it's going to be 6 years before they can even take the test.
Okay. So what was that specific language, or is eligible to test for, or what was?
Is it employee? Let's see, your person
Uh-huh.
having at least 2 years.
I don't think we need it.
Well, Liz
I don't
kind of
think we
thinks we
need it.
should, I mean, I think
If,
we do have to have
if Sharon
someone.
says this is the person I want from line 72 and 73, that's her prerogative. I don't think we need to have that in here.
I would like to have someone that's a certified arborist or is able to.
Sure, but do we have to put it
Recognized
in the
by-
code?
Well, it's a job, I mean, it's just
Up to
kind of
you.
like the high school guy with the,
All right,
you know.
all right.
I mean, you can take out the ISA and just somebody having 2 years experience in one of those related fields. Because if they have the experience, then they'll be able to take the test and become
Or
ISA
is-
certified.
Okay,
or is eligible.
so, just to clarify here, this, the 253-4 city arborist, okay? We're defining it in A, and then we are saying in B what she does, and then in C, we just somehow lost the urban forestry plan altogether?
Sounds like.
I thought we needed
sounds
an
like-
urban forestry plan based on everything that we talked about, Sturgis.
Well, I think Liz has given me a completely new perspective on that. And I mean, Hoyte had an interesting idea, which was to have the mayor's advisory committee on trees charged with developing an urban forestry plan.
Yeah,
Now you're back to the
so
fact that we were
mayor
trying
would-
to eliminate having 6 tree committees. And then I
All
thought.
right, so do we have an end to the line 71 language? Let's try and bang that in.
Liz, we probably should have
At
wrote this
least
before you came in.
2 years' experience. If you were gonna edit that list, what would you take out?
Take out of,
What, line 1?
if I was gonna take out part of
Yeah.
line 71?
Yeah,
72.
71 and 72 and 73. Well, how would you pare that down?
I mean, you could take out the whole thing about ISA,
Yeah.
or you could just say 2 years experience in arboriculture or related field, and shall be a certified arborist.
Okay.
So you could, you don't really need forestry, horticulture, landscape, architecture, or related field.
Yeah,
'Cause
I'm
that's
sorry,
just-
yeah, we do need that and a
So
certified
the 2 years
arborist.
experience would be in, what was the word?
Arboriculture or a related field.
Arboriculture.
Oh, thank you.
Right,
Liz.
yeah,
like
I
it.
think you're right.
I mean, because
Or
horticulture.
Because all of those are related fields.
Yes.
Thank
Or related
you.
field, and shall be a certified arborist, and then take out recognized by ISA, because you don't think that's necessary?
Well, who would certify him though? How else she get certified?
Some different states have their own certification processes, like Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Jersey, Maryland. You could be a Maryland LT.
So if we got somebody from another state, they may be certified by a different
You could be a Maryland
organization.
licensed tree expert,
Okay,
but not be certified. I
Yeah.
mean, it'd be rare, but it could happen.
so they could be, shall be a certified arborist or be eligible to be certified, or something like that?
It's up to you guys. I mean, that's up to you guys
mean,
if you want it to be that,
you-
read that way.
What do you think is the most practical thing to do in terms of making the city?
Shall be eligible or have the ability to obtain within
Okay.
1 year or something like that. That way you do limit who the city can hire.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what I have. The city arborist is an employee of the city or a subcontractor retained by the city having at least 2 years' experience in arboriculture or a related field and shall be a certified arborist.
You would call it a subcontractor?
Yeah, just leave the language as it is, on a contractual basis.
Okay, putting it back.
And shall be a certified arborist
Or
or eligible,
capable
or capable
Of attaining.
of attaining certification
Certification
within
within
1
1
year.
year.
Good.
Like my last job, that's what it was. You didn't have to be certified, but you
Right.
had to obtain it within 6 months of being hired.
Okay.
All right, one more time. City arborist is an employee of the city or a person retained by the city on a contractual basis, having at least 2 years' experience
2 years' experience in arboriculture
or a
or
related
related
field,
field,
and shall be a certified arborist.
or capable of attaining certification within 1 year.
Or should be a certified arborist within 1 year.
Or shall be capable of attaining certification.
Within 1 year.
How can you decide if somebody's capable, what if they fail the test?
There's certain guidelines based on your experience and education on when you're able to even sit for the test. So if you're.
So if I
that's what
hire
I'm
you
talking about.
because you're capable of doing it within 1 year, but you don't do it,
Well, okay, say, or
or she'll be a certified arborist,
shall obtain said certification within 1 year of hire date, or whatever.
I'm good with it.
Okay, give me the wordage, I'm good. Shall be certified arborist,
Or capable of becoming certified within a year.
okay, got it. Work.
Can we leave B alone the way it is now?
Or we,
Except for the word, take surveying out.
We're taking that function away from you.
Gosh, I don't get to be a surveyor anymore?
Do you
were you
survey?
doing a lot of that?
I don't even know what that means. I mean, I'm thinking like surveyor, like shooting a line and drawing a plot plan,
Right.
which
So you don't really survey,
You
right?
don't do
I'm not
anything you
a
would call a
licensed
surveyor.
surveyor, no.
It's out.
Shall
It's
be
out.
powers of inspection, permitting.
All right, we're gonna drop
you-
C.
The arborist shall exercise the powers of inspection, permitting, the powers of inspection and permitting, comma, including,
I would say review of, or approval of protection planning and replacement
Yeah.
plans.
And you couldn't just simply say that the city arborist shall exercise the powers as set forth in this code, period? You need to list them.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, I feel like that's more of a legal question.
Because you're
I
gonna,
don't-
get in this code, it's gonna say in numerous places what the city arborist does.
It is, and again, I kind of go back to my initial point which was to make this readable and easy for a person trying to figure out what the arborist is and does without having to go into other sections of the code. And for one of just one more, a couple of words.
Okay, all right, so the city arborist shall exercise the powers, no, shall
exercise the powers of inspection and permitting,
inspection,
comma, including, what'd you say? So just
Approval
review?
of or review of.
Inspection, permitting, and review, including protection, and then planting and replacement are essentially the same thing, right?
Well, these are plans, and I think in here we do talk about
They're different things.
protection.
No, planting and replacement plans. Are those two
Okay.
different
Yeah.
things? Or are they the same thing?
I don't know.
Why don't you just say planting? That way it covers any new tree getting installed.
There you go.
Including
Planting plans.
reviewing protection and planting plans. Take out replacement.
Yeah, I think it's, when you're replacing a tree,
Planting-
that's what we're talking about.
Planting and
It's planting.
replacement is either you're planting it newly or you're planting it as a replacement, but and replacement is maybe redundant.
Yes, there we go, redundant. That's what I was looking for.
Including reviewing protection and planting.
You got that, Susan?
plans.
And we're gonna scratch C then, right?
I think we are.
Are you guys good with that?
I'm good with it.
Yeah, but I have to think about where that's gonna go. So just,
Okay.
yeah,
Should we replace C with the city arborist comes up with a species list?
uh-huh. Shall maintain, or we could do that, we could list that in B.
If I'm a
Isn't it already
homeowner,
said somewhere else?
It's not, it's in the code, but it's still.
trying to put all the city
what
arborist
what
stuff
you
in the
kinda
same
do
place.
in a thumbnail.
So what are you suggesting? We move
Inspection,
this
permitting.
species list to
The
the,
city arborist
To a
shall develop
function
and
of the city
maintain
office?
a current
no, part of the job is for
Permitted
her to
species.
create
and
a species list.
yeah,
updated.
but I mean, should we move that provision over to,
No, I should probably copy this section before I start typing. I'm gonna get back.
Yes, in my opinion.
okay. Did everybody get that? We may still need to work on it, but what Pete's suggesting is we transfer the language from 253-6 species specifications to, I guess, C.
Have it all by
Section C
itself.
And then
Of
eliminate that
the
section.
functions of the city arborist. How do you feel about that, Liz?
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
So you want a separate section C that says the city arborist shall maintain.
This will become section 253, whatever the hell it is,
Oh, okay,
253-4
where did
C.
we do? Oh,
becomes 253-4C.
253. Oh, okay, hold on. Dun, 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 species specification.
You got it, Susan?
No, I'm
Here?
still,
Okay.
hold on a second.
You know, you
Um,
finish what you're finishing.
A's good, we got A completely, all right?
Yeah.
I'm still questioning your wording on B.
Oh,
City arborists shall exercise the powers of inspection
And permitting.
and permitting,
Yeah, comma,
comma, including reviewing protection
and
Plant.
planting plans.
and planting plans. And what are planting plans?
Any plans for planting.
Which are
trees.
part of permitting, right?
Well,
No.
currently not always, if you have no trees on your lot,
Got
and
it.
say you're building a new
Yeah.
house.
All right,
so
that was my question. Shall
Yeah.
exercise powers of inspection, and permitting, including reviewing protection and planting plans and enforcement of the provisions designated in this chapter. Do we need subject to review by the city manager? Isn't that
Not
fairly
really.
obvious that,
Not really.
do you even need that in there?
I don't think we need
I
it.
don't think so.
Okay. All right, now I'm done B. Sorry, I'm a little slow
Okay.
here.
No problem.
Just taking out
She
those
can
extra.
tell you what she wants anyway.
Yep, pretty
Right.
much. And because where are you gonna stop? You're gonna add the tree committee, you're gonna add the board of commissioners?
Right,
So,
right,
okay.
right.
All right, now we're on the same
All right,
page.
so
All right, now
then-
we're back to C. The
So then
city arborist
C,
shall develop
the
and
current C
maintain.
gets
We're
scratched.
getting rid of all of C.
I thought we were adding the city arborist shall develop and maintain a current.
You missed this kind
Yeah,
of,
no.
this conversation over here. So what we're doing is taking that out, and then what
C
you're
is
gonna do,
eliminated.
you're gonna
completely.
jump ahead to 25326. And we're gonna add some version of that as C.
So C, wait a minute, I understand we're saving part of C, but are we
No,
adding?
we're not, the only thing you're saying is the initial C period, or the city arbors. Initial C period, the city arbors. And then get rid of everything else.
But what am I putting after it?
You're gonna look ahead to section 253-6.
6, species specifications.
But under 253-4, C is going away completely.
Yes.
All the,
Thank you.
all the
Yes.
text.
Okay,
Delete,
so there's no more C,
delete.
but the part of C I'm moving to a
So
different
there's
area.
gonna be a
No,
new C.
no, what you're gonna do, we're gonna take the text of C out, and we're gonna substitute something else, and it's gonna be about the tree list that she's gonna maintain.
That's what I'm reading you. The city
Okay,
arborist should
so-
develop and maintain a current tree list.
Yeah, just use the language.
This
I
is-
mean, let's talk about the language. Do
This
we
is-
need to change the language that's in section 253-6?
When you took out the language that we talked about last time,
Yes, I did.
and the city arborist shall develop and maintain an official list of tree species. The city arborist shall develop and maintain an official list of permitted and prohibited species. Tree species that.
What line are you guys on?
I don't know what.
We're on
Pete's.
76?
We're on lines
104.
108, yeah, 107, 108, 109.
But they're getting moved up, right? You said
But they're gonna
63.
be moved to section,
Pete's looking at getting rid of this
253-4C.
altogether and just putting it under.
I want to eliminate section 6 and move the essence of section 6 under the city arborist. City arborist is going to maintain a list of permitted trees and I guess prohibited trees. Do we have a list?
Yeah.
Are we gonna prohibit planting of trees?
I was gonna, that's what I'm asking you.
Invasives.
no,
you have a list of
they've
prohibited trees
suggested creating a prohibited list, easy for you to say.
I don't think you can eliminate 6. I think that's a whole section that says everything that somebody needs to know about what they can and can't plant. If you want to add in, under city arborist, that she's responsible for creating it, then I would do that, but I don't think I would eliminate 6. I wouldn't have eliminated what Hoyt scratched out on his either.
Well, we kind of moved high canopy to, we moved native, we moved all of that to definitions, is what Hoyt did.
I think it's important for it to be someplace very clearly where this list of tree species that are permitted, who's developing it and where I can find it if I want to go and find it.
Which is what 223-6
Yeah,
said.
253-6 says that.
That's
but we
exactly
could-
what that is. It tells you what the species.
I wouldn't mind repeating some version of it as C, just what you said, the city
City
arborist.
shall develop and maintain a current species approved and prohibited species list.
Could we
Are you adding language there? And then, where are you getting that language?
She's out of her head.
Out of my head. I just made
Is
it.
that for section C?
Section
or-
C, that was
C
her
under
last, under
city
city
arborist.
arborist.
That's,
Maintaining.
whatever you said sounded good.
So-
How would you feel about also having recommended?
No.
Can we add
no,
recommended?
no.
Well, listen,
It is or it isn't.
Well,
Sometimes I just will star them on the actual list, because it,
I mean, if people are coming
mean
to
a
the list to
preferred-
ask her of
Well,
what
but
kind,
it-
what trees they can or can't.
it varies everywhere though. Like what may work on the ocean block of Stokely may be a terrible tree,
Even though it's-
somewhere else.
Even though it's permitted, it might not be advisable. Or if someone's looking for a particular characteristic of tree.
Yeah, again, I think
Well,
we're getting into
that's
the
also why
nitty-gritty.
they are
Pardon?
hiring a
I think we're
landscaper.
getting into the nitty gritty of what her job is.
Yeah,
I mean,
That's,
I mean, let,
I try to help people, but I mean, that's a for-profit job. That's a landscaper or a landscape designer's job.
Okay.
I mean, if they ask, I will help them, but
did you type
Got
in
it.
what
So
you?
here's what I have. The
Yeah.
city arborist shall develop and maintain a current approved and prohibited posted species list.
it approved it what?
Approved and
Prohibited.
prohibited. How about permitted and?
Permitted and
prohibited.
Well, I think if you could pick up the language, shall be posted on the city's website, rather than posted, just simply posted. Let's give them some information that'll be useful to them. What does posted mean?
yeah, because if I think of posted, I think of Anne,
Okay.
like where she posts her
City
stuff.
arborist shall develop and maintain.
Yeah, down on the, down on the wall downstairs. Yeah, I don't know that we need to say it's available on request of City Hall, so I'm good with that.
Just say available.
City
at
arborist shall
Hall.
develop and maintain a current species list.
And are you gonna leave the last sentence in there?
Did you
Do you want to put improved or prohibited or permitted or
Permitted.
non-permitted?
Permitted and prohibited.
If you're gonna prohibit certain things from being planted, we should say that.
So,
Yeah,
Current, permitted,
and prohibited.
are you good
and
with the prohibited list?
Who
There's
does it apply to? Anybody or just
Yeah,
people doing
yeah.
plans?
So if I,
So if you just wanna plant a tree on your property and you plant a Norway maple, and I get a complaint or I see it, I'm gonna have to go and write you up that you gotta remove your Norway maple you planted?
If it's prohibited in the city, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you were talking about things like, this all came up like with the bamboo being invasive species. I mean, there's certain things that, I mean, it's not gonna be a huge list. I mean, why do you prohibit those trees?
Norway
Yeah.
maple, cause they're invasive,
Okay.
pears.
City
Invasive.
arborist shall develop and maintain a current permitted and prohibited species list.
Available on the city website.
Available. Got it. Oh, look how many words we got rid of.
So when a landscaper comes to you developing, or either with your property or we doing landscaping,
They don't
do-
come.
they don't go to you and say, what's the permitted tree list?
If we're requiring them to plant trees, yes. But if somebody's just gonna like, so-and-so Joe's landscaping is just coming over to Hoyt's house to give him an estimate to like re-landscape his backyard, they're not gonna come to me, no. They don't, not unless trees are coming out.
Does it need a permit for that?
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
That's what I want.
So I've got 4 trees on my property, 5,000 square foot property. Got 4 trees on it.
You could use more.
I
Just
can,
saying.
and I've got room, I can plant another tree. And so I decide I'm gonna plant a Norway maple.
Mm-hmm.
What happens?
I come by, I see it, and I tell Liz.
Exactly.
Huh?
Or
Is that
I
what's-
see it, or somebody
Is
complains.
that what's gonna happen?
I'm asking you guys, you're the.
Yeah. I
mean,
have
what
a
do
problem
you-
with saying trees are prohibited.
I mean, do you-
Because nobody said anything to me about planting it, and I can't plant this kind of tree. How am I supposed to have notice about that?
Yes.
Well, that's why I asked if that you had to approve every landscaping plan, because if not,
Hey,
how does the landscaping
go to
know what's
Lowe's.
prohibited?
I went to Lowe's.
It
put
is, and
in
it's a
my
matter of
pickup,
it
threw
being
in-
seen. You don't have to go get it, but if she sees somebody planting,
If it's in the code, then it's gotta be in for, it can't just be
people eating
selectively.
trees in their front yard, she can go in and say, hey, they're on the prohibited list, you can't plant that tree, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, period. Okay, there's only a few of them, there's only a handful of things, right?
Depends on what you could do, Leland
But-
cypress, pears,
I'm gonna-
Norway
But I
I'm
mean,
gonna
what would
take
you,
it
right
another
now, if I
turn.
said, Liz, what can I plant in town, what would you tell me?
If I had to just randomly
Yeah.
make up species, pear, Norway maple, bamboo, English ivy, maybe a couple other
All right,
herbaceous.
so I'm gonna expand my 4 trees. I got my 4 trees. And actually, I've probably got about 300 trees on my property. 3 of them are, or whatever the hell they are, and the other, however many I said, 100 are bamboo. And so now I'm gonna put a porch on my backyard. And so I come in for a building permit.
Mhm.
And some of that bamboo is in where the porch is gonna be. Am I gonna have to rip out all that bamboo because it's on your prohibited list? I'm arguing
not
against this.
planting it.
I'm using
No,
every
this
little
is-
thing
this
I
You're
is
not
can.
planting it, it's existing.
Again, right now, is there anything
Okay,
that,
all right, I hear you, okay.
the only reason this even came up was because when I did our building, okay, I was planting the bamboo.
Speaking of bamboo,
Okay.
that's right.
We planted the bamboo, we brought the
I
bamboo
know.
and we planted it, and the
And it was
city
cool.
administrator at that point came over, the inspector came over and said, hey, you're not allowed to plant bamboo in the city unless it's contained. I said, and I had already known that, I had already researched it, and it was already contained.
Because
Okay.
of the way that planting.
It's planted in huge horse troughs. Doesn't mean it didn't escape, which is a pain in the neck to still maintain, but it was contained. So obviously, at some point in time, somebody was enforcing it already. So
Okay.
I'm just saying, are you
All
gonna
right.
do a prohibited
State
list
of-
or no? Do you wanna do a prohibited
State of
list?
Delaware used to have things prohibited,
Okay.
so for
Do you-
bamboo.
All right.
Do you wanna do a prohibited list or no?
Up to you guys.
It's not, it's up to you.
You're in charge
Put
of.
it in there, Susan, put it in.
If you don't want it, I mean, I would say
Put it
just
in.
wait, but you can't go over after somebody plants something and saying you can't. If you don't need a prohibited species list, then it shouldn't be in the code.
If you do a prohibited species list, it would probably have to go out with every single landscaping company.
Okay, let's take it out.
How does someone know that bamboo's not permitted now?
It's not permitted.
Okay, then why do we even need a species list? What is our species list if there's not things that recommended or,
Yeah, well, that was.
no, because when we did it, it was things that counted toward the 3 trees that you could have, was why we needed a list. Had to be one of those trees on her list.
Liz maintains lists now of trees
Okay,
that,
Yeah, there is a city list that exists.
There
It's
is.
on the website.
Yeah.
yeah.
And Norway maple's in there. No.
Hey.
So I'm a little bit confused. You said the red maple is not permitted? The
No,
Norway,
red maples are native.
the Norway maple, whatever.
Norway maple, I mean, we don't have anything prohibited, like species wise. That would be one I would choose because it is highly invasive.
Alright, so as we review this, from your perspective, is it a good idea to have a list of trees that are prohibited in the city of Rehoboth? Blatantly out there, you cannot plant these trees, so that it's out there, so anyone knows that.
It could be. I wouldn't be against having it. We'd have to figure out the enforcement aspect of it.
under 25.3, what Sturgis and I had developed, long story short, we basically said the first tree has to be one thing, the second tree has to be another thing, and then the next tree, the third and remaining required trees may be any permitted species, which is why there was a list that Liz had of permitted species. In other words, you could have whatever trees you wanted, but if you wanted it to count as one of your 3 trees required for density, it needed to be one of those trees. That's where the list came from.
And I'm all for that method of defining the trees.
So it wouldn't be called a permitted or prohibited species list, it would be called an a qualifying species list or an approved species list or we're going to count your tree species list. Right? Okay, so what do you want to call it?
Approved.
Good.
Approved species list. A current approved species list. Got it. Oh my gosh, we're done. Okay, so here's the final. The city arbor shall develop and maintain a current approved species list available on the city website. Okay,
That's part C, correct?
yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's see.
All right, done.
Cool.
Next. Hoyt's 253-5.
Yeah, City Tree Commission, huh?
I had a comment about,
Yeah,
special exceptions.
That
Are we
is
back to
language-
having a tree ordinance
that
committee?
is language, that is language that, as I recall, Sandy Bieber had suggested.
Okay.
And, you know, if you want to scratch that, I'm good with that.
It just seems to be like an odd catch-all.
Yeah, I think
And-
that's exactly what it was intended to be.
I know, and
Yeah.
I just thought that it was covered by
I mean, do you
the
have
other
any?
parts of the,
I think the other two provisions, as you
I think they
suggest, cover it.
they
so.
cover everything. To hear and decide appeals where it's alleged there's an error, or to authorize a variance that will not be contrary to public interest, and provided further that such relief may be granted without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of this ordinance.
Can I ask a question before we get into this? Why did we go back to deciding, I read all your notes about the Board of Adjustments not being able to do appeals, because they said they were too busy. So this commission that we're going to have, you're going to keep the commission.
What? Okay.
Why are we keeping the commission? Before we rewrite the whole section about having a commission, if we write a good code that doesn't require a zillion variances, do we need a tree commission? I'm not trying to put people out of work here. I'm just saying, when we initially started a year and a half or however long we've been here, we had people from the commission come in and sit with us to talk about trees. These are not arborists, they are not licensed people, they are not tree specialists, they are citizens. So there are, again, I'm saying that you're putting people in a position to overturn what Liz says who really don't know nearly as much
So-
as what Liz
You
knows.
have to have the availability to appeal any decision.
Why can't they go to the Board of Adjustment?
Because they just said with their caseload, it's just not feasible.
Actually, there were two
So-
kinds of issues,
makes
and
it
one
up.
was about, Linda Kaufman's objection was about that the Board of Adjustment apparently somehow in its charter formation or something is only supposed to hear decisions of the building inspector.
But under our
Liz
code,
is-
Liz would work under the building inspector. I believe at some point we were getting there.
Liz has kind of said, if I may, that she answers to the city manager, not to the building inspector.
And Sharon has repeated that.
Yes, so Liz
Okay,
is
so then
not
we need a whole
under the
nother
building
commission
inspector.
just for
And
people
we
that don't
have
like
one,
Liz's
which
decision.
is, unfortunately.
Okay.
So I have to relate to you a conversation I had recently with someone who has knowledge about these issues. And the sense was that, I think I said this earlier, where there's a will, there's a way. And so it's not inconceivable that we could make refinements to the city code, to the zoning code that would incorporate matters that might be brought to their body by the city arborist.
Which would make a lot of sense because
Uh,
every reason not to have a tree is related to the zoning code, not having room to have a
And
tree.
use some of the language that we have
Oh.
suggested for this tree commission to be used or to be placed in this zoning code revision that would empower her to,
But is that
to
not
do
the
that.
Board of Adjustment and Appeals? Is that not the board? If somebody has a problem with
So
some setback, they
in
go to the
essence, what
Board
would
of
happen
Adjustment
is
or
that would
zoning.
expand their scope
But is that a
to
different board?
encompass, no, it would expand the scope of the Board of Adjustment to encompass ruling on tree appeals.
Okay, so Gene's shaking his head. So Gene, let me ask you a
Yeah,
question.
no,
so-
let me finish. So that, I mean, that was the argument that was made. I don't happen to buy it.
Okay.
I don't accept that as, but you know, that is one possibility. I believe as both the chair and the vice chair, whatever the hell they are, said, this is too much for us to do. It's, you know, it's an undue burden to have us take on this additional responsibility.
But let me ask you a
Oh, and
question.
this person,
We come
I'm
up with
sorry,
a- we come
this
up with a
person
simple
also said
code.
what you said about the Tree City. They were suggesting the Tree City could be,
We could still
reworked.
be a tree city and be, you know, acknowledged by Arbor Day Foundation without having a Parks and Shade Tree Commission, even though it's their preference that we have both a city arbors and a Parks
Yeah,
and Shade Tree
well, we have,
Commission.
because we have Mayor's Advisory Committee on trees.
Oh,
too.
okay.
What
I mean, I think
percentage
we
of
got that
things that
covered.
went to the commission last year do you think were a result of the fact that there were issues with the code that needed to be fixed?
you mean how many cases would not be going?
Yeah, how many cases would be left if
Yeah.
you fixed the part of the code that were the continual habitual things that made people go?
Well, the thing that makes most people go is just the having to pay the fee in lieu of mitigation. So
Right.
most people ask me, can I just come in and write you a check today? And I have to say, no, you have
Which
to
is what
appeal.
we started at in the very beginning of this debate. If you eliminate that section of the code, and again, let me get back to this, I think the only issue that's gonna be left, if we fix that, is just plain not having the room to put the tree on because of the fact that the zoning code regulates setbacks and how big a house can be. So do you go to the zoning code and say, can I go in my setback, or can I make, or do you go to the tree people and say, can I not have the tree? To me, it seems redundant. Does that make sense?
Is that gonna allow people to cut down trees with no recompense?
No, it's just fixing that part of it. But
But
again,
how are we gonna fix it?
you know, how do you know what committee to go to? Do you go to the committee that is not letting you go into your setback to get around a tree, or do you go to the committee that is making you put the tree in, or do you have to go to both? What if there's just one committee? It's a zoning issue, and zoning is regulated by Board of Adjustment, correct? That's where people go. You don't have a separate zoning board, right?
It's all Board of
that-
Adjustment.
It's all Board of Adjustment. It's the same issues.
What do you
I
think, Gene,
understand they're busy, but
About which,
about substituting the Parks and Shade Tree Commission with the Board of Adjustment?
well, the Board of Adjustment's duties and responsibilities are set by state statute.
Right,
The city code cannot change that.
got it.
does it have anything
Can
to do
we
with
add to their
setbacks?
Well,
responsibilities?
it's the building, it's
We
about
cannot add to their
decisions of the
responsibility.
building, office of the building inspector.
Well-
It's limited to decisions
If,
of the office of the building
if
inspector.
something comes out of the building inspector's office, it is handled by statute by the Board of Adjustment.
I got it, right. And that charge can't be changed in the city. The Board of
But
Adjustment.
if you want to change the charter, perhaps it could be.
Would have to change
Oh,
the city
really?
charter in order to do that.
But you wouldn't even have to do that. All you would have to do is have Liz say, you can't get the trees in that you need. You need to go to the zoning department and see if you can get a variance for your zoning issue.
But
And
the
then
other- the
then it
other problem-
automatically becomes a Board of Adjustment issue.
The other problem is that the Board of Adjustment is $1,000 minimum to go there.
Right.
And that's because they have to pay for an attorney that is separate for the Board of Adjustment.
And how much is tree commission?
250.
250. Have I got a deal for you?
Now, the
Okay.
one thing we've done, or that we've done in here is that we have said that the people who are members of the Tree Ordinance Commission shall be provided with annual training and education regarding the tree ordinance, as well as governance training related to their appellate responsibilities.
I mean, I'm a proponent of that, and Julie and Sandy were both
Yeah,
advocates of, I mean, there's,
So-
I mean, I forget who said it, one of you said it. There's just no experience or there wasn't any experience, and I think there is now. I think there's a couple people on that
Right.
commission that have got some experience and background.
Some legal
Can you-
experience.
Excuse me, Liz, can you give me an example of when someone went to, excuse me, this Tree Ordinance Commission recently?
We actually haven't had a meeting in a while. We have one coming up that
Yeah,
it's
there's one next week.
that's a appeal for a fee in lieu of mitigation. We
Is there?
just can't fit. When they built the house, they removed several trees and had quite a bit of accumulated mitigation. Now, a couple of years later, a very large oak has died. So that was used for those mitigation inches, helped to offset it. And so now they have to plant, I think, 3 trees in place of that 34-inch oak. And they don't feel they can fit them on their property.
Do you recall the property?
Yeah, it's listed. It's 12 Canal Street.
12 Canal, okay.
So they don't think they can plant the trees and
It's
your,
tight.
and your hands are tied?
What do you mean my hands are tied?
The code says they had to plant 3 trees.
The code says they have to provide the city with a planting plan in order to plant those 3 trees, yes.
And you can't say, hey, they can't do that, 2 trees is fine. You don't
No.
have that authority.
Not the way the code's currently written.
Nor
So-
should it be written that way. It's
Got it.
So let's look at the way the code is under my proposal. 3 trees? So are they able to plant anything?
They can
It will
replace-
cost them, I'm sorry, I'm jumping to the bottom line. It would cost them $1,800 in this situation. Because if they can't plant any trees, it's $600 a tree. Okay,
That's your proposal.
that's my proposal.
But I think that they should have to plant a tree.
Okay,
And 600
where
bucks is
where
not a
should they
lot.
plant it?
That I don't know. So that's the
Well, they
problem.
have rooms there.
Obviously, if the
Right
oak
where
came
they're
down,
removing it.
Right where they're taking
Yeah,
the
they
tree
have
out,
a
they got room.
30-something inch.
Well, okay, yeah, no, that's what I said, how many trees, if they can get a tree in, then $1,200. They can get 2 trees in, $600.
my concern, and Sturgis and I talked about this, is if someone is gonna spend $1 million on a property in downtown Rehoboth Beach, and they don't want that oak tree there, or that oak tree dies, they could easily cough up $1,800. And now you've defeated the purpose of providing high canopy shade trees.
Exactly.
And so,
Well, time out. Let's go back to this is good, I'm liking this. Let's go back to the minimum density, whatever we're calling it. You gotta have 3 trees. You gotta have 3 trees, and under my proposal, which is drawn from theirs, you gotta have one of those has to be a high canopy tree. Okay? So you can't buy your $1 million property and, just put out a sun deck. You gotta have 3 trees.
So what was the size that you decided a permit needed to be? Was it 20 inches still?
We
Oh, we're
haven't,
working on that.
we've gone all
Yeah,
different,
we're working on
we've
that.
gone all different kind of places.
I guess the question is, there has to be a place to appeal.
There has
Oh,
to
yeah.
be,
A
and
decision.
Yeah.
Because her hands are somewhat
Yes.
tied.
she
So,
agrees.
Yeah,
while I
have
do
to
agree
agree.
with you that creating a commission just to review her decisions is kind of burdensome. I don't see any way around it if we can't by law toss it to the Board of Adjustments.
Or to somebody.
But if it's to somebody, then you're creating another commission.
Oh, I see. You want it to go to the board.
I mean, I totally agree with the concept, is why are we creating a commission simply to appeal her decision? I agree with that, but if we don't have an alternative, then we have to have an appeal process.
But we do already have, this isn't a brand new commission. We won't be adding another meeting to the repertoire. We already have them. And we have to remember these people are volunteering their time. So I think they'll probably be happy if they only have to meet for an hour once every 3 months. I don't think that'll be a big problem,
Well, I think,
So Susan, are you trying to just eliminate a section? Or, I mean, is there a reason why you want them to go to the Board of Adjustment? Because it's like one-stop shopping?
Yeah, I'm basically hoping that if we write a good code, that there's not going to be that many hearings, And that so many of the instances of why, the only thing that I think that people are going to have to go for when we write a good code is because there physically is not room to put a tree on the property, which, you know, I don't see happening often. And, you know, that becomes a zoning issue. Look, the zoning code says you can cover 100% of your lot with a building, or it's grandfathered in or whatever. But landscape code says I need a tree, so is there, you know, can you give me an exception? Because it's, you know, and again, we're going back into where do you, the whole thing started with the setbacks were bigger, we could fit more trees. You're gonna rewrite the zoning code today, you know? I mean.
But that, you're not getting to the question, or at least my understanding of the question, and that is, you're arguing that it should go to the Board of Adjustment. Right? And Gene is saying it can't go to the Board of Adjustment unless it's the building inspector that takes it there.
Right. So Liz is the person that you would go to if you don't like what Liz says, is the building inspector. And then he would say, you know what? I agree, this shouldn't be an issue, you don't
So
have to go
if
see anybody, or I agree with Liz, you gotta go to the Board of
If it's a
Zoning.
disagreement between the property owner and the city arborist.
It
where
would
does
go to the building
Where does it go?
official.
It goes to the building
And if the building
inspector?
official doesn't agree with Liz, then it goes to the Board of Adjustment, which makes it legal.
How do you like that, Liz? I mean,
I don't see the
and
problem with having
I don't
the
know
partnership
how
be
that
appeals committee.
how that conflicts with Sharon's line of authority. I mean, that may not conflict with her line of authority as long as she, you know,
I think having
she's
another,
the boss of you.
having another staff member judge and rule on another employee's
Whoa.
decisions or
Would
it's
the-
a very
would-
strange precedent. to
Susan,
set.
would the building inspector be able to overrule the city arborist?
I don't know how their hierarchy works. I don't know who's over,
I'm
who's
just
over you,
saying,
just
you
city
know.
manager?
Yeah.
Well, then it
Yep,
doesn't
they
work.
both-
Huh?
No, it doesn't.
Okay,
That's
it
the
doesn't
problem.
work if there's nobody over top of
There
Liz.
is, except the city manager.
Yeah,
Those
but,
are
Okay.
but I guess when,
In numerous jurisdictions, the zoning administrator's over did you ever work somewhere where the zoning administrator was your boss?
Usually there's several arborists, like in big cities, where they would be in planning and zoning and in parks and rec and in streets.
And this isn't a
That
matter of
just
not liking
depends.
your decision, it's a matter of it doesn't meet the code. You can't physically meet the code, which if you're gonna leave in there, the one thing that you did scratch out, wait, that I noticed last night, of the part about the Tree Ordinance Commission, you gotta put the part back in there that is famous for how everybody gets off when they don't wanna do something. Owing to special conditions or exceptional situations, a literal interpretation of this ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulties to the property owner. And you scratch that, I mean, that is
I think you
that's
should
what it
leave, I
is.
think you
You
should
have to
leave
leave
it.
that
You
in.
gotta
If
leave
you're
it.
gonna keep it, you have to leave that in.
Yeah, you do.
So
You do, because you take the guts.
that is the hardship reason for every board, you know? So,
I just made a note, keep language.
Yeah. so, okay, so we're
but
leaving,
we're still getting away from.
you're
you know,
leaving the commission is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Keeping it.
Yeah, no. I'm asking the question.
I think
Does
we
the
should
city,
keep it.
does the building inspector have the authority to overrule the city arborist?
No,
No,
she just said that. No,
Not
she
Then
doesn't.
it's not gonna work.
Only the city
Right.
manager
Then
does.
it's not gonna work. Then you have to have a tree commission.
Or you change the hierarchy of
And that's something you can't do.
put Liz under the zoning
And
administrator.
that's
Yeah, which we-
a state
I think. above our pay
mandated
grade.
requirement.
Right,
All right.
so.
Where's the
So
language
here's
you
the
want me
two
to take
comments.
out?
The two comments is
253 is
take out 96 and restore 98 and 99.
All right, hang on, I'm gonna take a look at that.
When you say take out 96, it's paragraph 2?
It's one sentence.
We're at this.
Right, take out, right here.
Yeah,
Take
line
out 2 here and
96.
decide special exceptions.
To hear and decide special exceptions to the terms.
You
of
want
this.
that deleted.
I want that deleted, because I
Yeah.
just think it's a kind of an odd catch-all. And I think the two things that are appropriate are number 1 and number 3, and number 3 in entirety.
Okay. What are you
All right, so
saying?
you wanna just change, you want all the stuff that's been,
All the things have been
redlined out, you
redlined
want
out.
back in.
Yeah, Susan and I want that back in.
I have no problem with that.
You good with that?
I'm fine with that. So that's
Okay.
gonna be paragraph 2.
Okay.
I'm still on the second line.
Alright.
I'm still on line 84.
1 and 2 remain.
She wants 2 out.
You're still up in A.
I'm
Are
on
you still up in
84.
A? She's still on lane 84.
Yeah, what's the difference between a property owner and or citizen? What's the difference between a property owner and a citizen?
Maybe citizen could
Citizen
include
doesn't own
long-term.
property.
Well, could
Doesn't-
include long-term
doesn't necessarily.
It
renters.
could be someone that rents.
Yeah,
Like voting, I
a
would,
renter.
LLC is a property owner, doesn't have to be a citizen.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
okay.
true too.
All right, so can we just start at the beginning just to get down there? So, because since I'm typing, the commission shall consist of 5 members who will serve without compensation. The members shall be property owners and are citizens of the city, who shall be appointed by the mayor with the approval of the Board of Commissioners. Everybody's good with that?
Yep.
Each member shall be provided annual training and education regarding the tree ordinance, as well as governance training related to commission's appellate responsibilities. What the heck is that, and do we have it?
So they know how to
We don't.
treat an appeal.
Because they hear appeals.
All right, so all that
There
stays.
is, and I'm told that there is specific training, it might even be right here in Sussex County, I forget what they told
Okay.
me.
So yes, all the trades.
For that credential or whatever we're calling it, qualification.
And they are called the Tree Ordinance Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, all right,
Yep.
I'm good with that. All right, B, I just want to try and highlight this in order. Is everybody good with B?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then we're on C now. All right, so B is all staying?
Uh-huh.
B, everything in B is staying.
Yeah.
All right, C, subject to the provisions of 25-13, 253-13.
That's the last section.
Removal of
that we
dead or
covered.
diseased trees.
All right, I'm gonna highlight
Or the
that
next to the last
red,
section.
just because we don't know if that's still gonna be the number when we get down there.
It's not.
That's true, yeah.
All right, so everything, subject to the provisions of whatever, and whatever it's called, the commission shall have the following powers. So why are we subjecting to another, why are we writing this twice if it's already down in somewhere else?
Just,
that just legal jargon?
It just refers people to how the process follows.
But it's already in 253-13?
No, it's not. It's
not.
telling them what they're gonna do.
It's telling them what they're gonna do
Okay.
in order to follow this process.
All right,
Right.
all right, so,
How they carry out their functions
Right.
is in 13 or whatever that
Yep.
number is.
So we're gonna keep line 94, 1.
How about 95?
We're gonna, and 95. Thank you,
Thank
thank
you.
you, thank you.
not, number
Shall we
1
go
is
for
staying?
Yeah, number
96.
1 in total.
If you could just, I don't have my line numbers on
Oh,
here, so
okay,
just
I'm
give me the
sorry.
numbers.
You don't?
Okay, number
So,
1, we're gonna keep C1.
To hear and decide appeals which is alleged that there is error in any order requirement decision. You need all those words?
Yep, why not? Sounds like good lawyer talk.
Jean, do we need all those words? Oh, I'm sorry, we got 2 attorneys. We need all those words.
That was a yes.
Well,
To hear and decide appeals where it is alleged that there is error in any order,
2 is
requirement,
what you wanted out, isn't it?
decision, or determination made by the city arborist or other city official. Now, what other city official is making a decision about this code?
City manager?
City manager.
Why would the city manager be involved with this?
Because that's
Because
her
she's my
boss.
boss.
But if
In her
you say no, can
absence or
she say yes?
she's my boss, yeah.
So should it just say, or the city manager?
How about the mayor?
Or are we gonna let any other city official?
Could the
Chime in.
mayor do that too?
Okay, all right, all right.
I mean, they could all make decisions,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm just giving examples of city officials. So again, forgive me, did we scratch 2?
We haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I mean, what if I'm on vacation and somebody
That's right.
issues a tree permit and then we can't
Right.
appeal it because it doesn't,
Right.
it says city manager and it was a
Alright.
building inspector.
So one is all staying.
One is on.
Now we're on two.
All right, I'm sorry.
My vote is to scratch two.
And I'm comfortable with that. Because we don't know what the other special exception is.
I don't, yeah, I just,
It's a variant, it's the same thing, right?
it's the
No,
same,
I-
yeah, I think the other things
It's
we've
an exception
covered
from the
up to-
actual
Yeah,
code.
yeah.
Because a variance is the same as an
But what
exception.
happens, here's one is an appeal for a violation or an error in interpretation, and two is discretionary.
But look at three.
Look at three.
Three is saying essentially the same thing.
See, I think three covers,
I don't see the difference between, too much difference between 2 and 3. I think 3
Yeah,
covers 2,
covers.
I guess.
yeah.
Yeah,
that's
three
what I'm-
probably.
Is there a term that is used by the Parks and Shade Tree Commission today that would be considered or construed as special exception? I mean, is it, you go to all those things, don't you?
Can you just put a variance or special exception in 3?
I don't think we need it.
Yeah, I don't think we need
It's
to either.
redundant,
I think,
I don't know.
yeah, I think
Alright.
exception and variance,
Final answer, taking it out?
take out two.
Done.
And
All
then-
right, so now we only have
Gene, you
2,
okay now?
3 is gone.
And
He's
then
good, he's
take-
good. We
yeah,
got
take
it, we
out
beat him
two,
down now, we're
and
good.
then-
So number 2 is now to authorize in specific cases a variance from this ordinance that will not be contrary to public interest.
And then restore what's been scratched out.
Do you need to have in specific cases? Obviously, it's a specific case.
I wondered about that as well. Do we need to say in specific cases?
Well, otherwise it could just be overarching.
Global,
Yeah,
global,
Yeah.
okay.
So say a tree company could come in and
And
say, well,
say,
I want
I
a
don't-
variance
For
from
my company.
planting a front yard tree.
Anything I
Good,
do.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
just some part of the code, they just
Yeah.
don't like it. So keep specific cases, I think.
I just think it's vague.
Hmm?
I think it's vague to authorize in specific cases.
How would you,
What
how
specific
would you
cases?
clean it
I
up?
don't know.
Okay.
I'm not even sure why, you're basically allowing, this paragraph says you can get a variance,
Mm-hmm,
essentially, correct?
mm-hmm.
So isn't getting a variance a specific case in and of itself?
What would language be that would be
To
less vague?
authorize a variance when owing to special conditions or exceptional situations. A literal interpretation of this ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulties, period.
Yeah, something like that.
Now that I'm
Period.
focusing on this, I think my sense was, is this necessary for what we're trying to accomplish here? And I felt that the language, that I eliminated did not have any impact on the ability of the commission to take this kind of action.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
say that, again. I didn't follow you.
It'll never come out the same.
It'll be better the second
Let's
time.
put it this way, I don't think it was necessary.
I
How
got
does
it.
that work?
Okay.
It's more restrictive.
I am happier having the unnecessary hardship and exceptional practical difficulty in there, because I would hope that's what would inform the decisions made by the Parks and Shade Tree Commission. So I like the fact that we're stating it.
It does put more of a guideline on them.
Rather
Like you
than
can
just
grant a variance, but it
explicit.
has to be,
All right.
Right.
it's not just because somebody doesn't like trees, like maybe they physically don't have space.
Right.
I'm struggling to.
Otherwise,
I
anybody
can't
could
even
come in
read
and
it.
say,
Right.
Anymore.
Yeah, because my thought is that in their appellate training, that's what they're going to be told, is that's the basis on which they should make decisions, possibly. But I really think that's the circumstances under which they should make
All right,
the grant a variance.
okay.
So I prefer that to be in.
But you wanna
Susan,
Pick some of the languages.
I think Susan had it, to authorize a variance from this ordinance that will not be contrary to the public interest and where owing to special conditions or exceptional situations, a literal interpretation of this ordinance would result in unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulties to the property owner, period.
Yeah, I actually think that the following
I see,
sentence is
okay.
just reiterating
Okay.
the point. But I'm still a little bit concerned with Liz's concern that we don't somehow make this a specific case. But I don't know how, because she's saying somebody could come in and just say,
Blanket,
A-
there's.
So
I've
when they
worked
come
places
in,
that says that,
there's a case identified, it's a case number, it's all that business.
But I
Wouldn't
think
that
it
be
says that by
adequate,
leaving this part back in
Yeah.
here.
Right.
so just-
yeah,
You know,
okay.
I think it says
So this-
specific cases or
by
special
having the
conditions or
conditions,
exceptional
you're
situations.
qualifying what the variance is about.
which you enumerate as you,
Right, so I mean, we're taking out in specific cases because we're adding back in special conditions or
But
exceptional
what if I
situations.
came in and I represented my own tree company and I said, well, I have a lot of clients on ocean blocks, and due to the northeast winds and the salt air, I think that everybody in an ocean block should be granted a exception from the front tree.
From a front yard tree.
Yeah,
Because that's
so-
gonna be an unnecessary hardship?
Yeah, because it's really hard to grow a tree on an ocean block in the front yard.
and as the commission, I would respond to you, have your
But you're
property
not the
owner-
commission, so we can't say what the
Yeah.
commission may
No,
or
but
may
I'm
not
saying,
say.
Yeah.
you're speculating, why can't I?
But that's a special condition or exceptional situation. You don't need to put specific cases in there again.
Well, to me, those are two different things. What
Maybe
Liz and-
maybe
what-
there's some logic to
What
that,
Liz
you
and
know?
I are saying is.
I mean, I'm making my best argument. I
No, you
actually
are
do
good.
feel that it's very hard to plant a tree in the ocean block and have it
No,
live.
no,
So
yeah,
that's why
no.
I'm saying it.
But Liz and I.
But to have the guy say, I'm gonna do the first 7 houses in the block,
And I want a variance to.
and
for every
my
single
response
one
was
of them.
gonna be, well, have your property owners come in and we'll address their issues.
Well,
Yeah.
the code's wrong. It needs to be changed. So I'm here trying to get it changed.
So that's kind of why I challenge.
They
Pete.
had, I've worked in places where they've had like blanket permits and stuff. Like if you wanted to spray different
Oh.
types of street trees in an HOA, where you would go in and apply for a blanket permit to spray all the trees in the HOA instead of like an individual permit. So I've seen stuff like that before where it is.
But how
Scale.
does the 3 words in specific cases change what we're getting at?
Because it already says owing to special
I mean, you could say,
conditions
Yeah, but
or
common
exceptional
properties, blah, blah,
situations,
blah,
which
blah.
is special condition is an oceanfront property.
Yeah, but it's not, but it could be, as she's saying, it could be multiple properties with someone saying,
Or a bunch of neighbors going together.
bunch of neighbors coming together.
All right,
and
so you're
sort of-
leaving it in
You wanna
specific.
put
I
it-
don't know if specific cases even
Do you wanna
resolves
put it
that,
into the
but
individual
either.
property owner?
How about that? To authorize.
Well, that's what I was
What
trying to say
what
to
would
her.
you say?
Down to the very, I've been making this bigger here. It would be line 99, or exceptional practical difficulties to the individual property owner.
Okay. Owing to special conditions or exceptional
Or just leave
situations
specific cases out.
for an individual property owner?
To the individual.
Okay.
But it's a variance. It has to be just for one property. You
But,
can't
yeah.
get a variance for
No,
two.
she's saying it
Well,
would be
see,
more than
she's
one.
saying.
I mean, I'm just making a
Well,
devil's advocate.
But she is.
When you go in for a variance, it has to be advertised for one property at a time, right, Ann? You can't go in for a variance when you go in for a variance, you're advertised and posted for one property. You can't go in for a variance and post 20 properties.
No.
Separate each time, right? Yeah, so it's already says that.
We're arguing about 3 words in specific
Yeah.
cases.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
All right,
I
we're
know.
leaving them in, if we're gonna
I
argue.
say take
okay.
it out.
See, I would say take it out.
Okay, well,
I don't think it does anything.
Okay, take it out.
all right, so
I'm good.
That's a consensus.
I'm
can we
good
take
'cause-
out that will not be contrary to the public interest and provide further that relief may be granted? So it would read, to authorize in specific, are we taking it out? or in
Yeah,
specific?
taking
Yeah.
it out.
All right, to authorize a variance from this ordinance where, owing to special conditions or exceptional situations, a literal interpretation of this ordinance will result in unnecessary hardship or exceptional practical difficulties to the property owner without substantially impairing the intent and purpose of this ordinance.
Okay,
Yeah,
I took out, and
Yeah,
provide
that's fine.
further that such relief may be granted.
all right.
that's fine, whatever
And-
you said.
All
Whatever you
right.
said,
Whatever you said.
Whatever
No, it
you
was
said.
it.
Let's go.
You did good.
To
Oh.
authorize
You did good.
a
All right,
variance from this ordinance.
here we go. Now we got a good one. Let's
Now
get
he's
down to the
kinda
meat and
good.
potatoes here.
You think? We're just down to 6.
Huh?
We're just
Well,
down to
six
six.
gone.
We took care of 6.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we did 6.
Anybody know how to take out strikeouts?
Well, we left
So I have
it,
to read
we
10%.
left 6, didn't we?
Yeah, but we moved
said
it
it's
over to
okay.
4C.
I think we decided to leave it in both places, didn't we?
No.
Susan thought so.
No.
She did.
Huh?
What?
We'll have to ask her. Susan, did you leave 253-6 in place?
Dash 26 species specifications?
No, we're eliminating, it's
not
Yeah.
the same
26, it's
language.
6.
Come
Well,
on, ladies.
She left it in place.
No, because Hoyt's strikeouts don't
It has
come
to,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it needed to
It's
stay.
eliminated.
She says it needs
I
to
think it
stay.
needed to
I
stay.
think it needs to stay.
Yeah.
It's the same language.
Yeah,
Put it one place or the other. Let's not say the same thing in 2 different
well,
places.
I think we can say that the city arborist needs to maintain, one of her jobs is to maintain the list, but also say species specifications are
Isn't
for
the
that
language
list.
identical?
Susan, what did you
Oh,
write?
well, the
What
only,
did you write
I
about?
got rid of the definitions, that's why it has to stay for me, because high canopy was in there, native tree is
I
in
want the
there,
definitions.
city arborist was in there. So basically, if you're gonna leave those definitions up top, then we need to take whatever wording's in here and put it in the definitions, and then you could probably get rid of it.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Yes.
But you're holding that in reserve. She's kind of holding it in reserve
All right.
until
You're
we
gonna
get
have
to definition.
You're gonna have to come back and,
All right, so
I'm
we're
lost.
coming back to this one?
Wait a second.
Yeah,
You totally
we're
lost me.
skipping down to,
I'm making it purple.
Can you
Okay,
read to
someone-
me what you wrote about the city arborist?
Yeah,
Make it a list.
wait, before you get to that. Are you saying, what definition are you referring to?
That's in 25(3-6) species specifications. There was,
Wait, I'm not asking about that. I'm asking about didn't somebody just say something about there's language in a definition?
yeah, high canopy trees must be native and able to attain a minimum
Oh,
height of
high canopy
45
tree,
and canopy
okay.
spread of 20 foot at maturity.
Okay. I'm
Then
sorry.
back up here in definitions, you have a similar definition, so we should put that in one place or the other. So if you wanna keep the
That's what I was trying
definitions,
to do.
and let's,
I was putting a high canopy tree in the definition so people knew
Okay.
what it was.
all right,
Okay?
so we're taking it out of 25, which we can probably do,
Yeah.
Sturgis, I think. Take it out of there.
take
Out
what
of
out
where?
of, what out of where?
Okay, 253-26.
Yeah, 6.
6 now.
Yeah, 6.
Okay, high canopy tree. Sturgis, we had a
Well,
high
that's-
canopy
we struck
tree,
that, yeah.
must be native and able to maintain a minimum height of 45 feet and a canopy spread of 20 feet at maturity. Is that the new definition for high canopy tree?
I
Uh-huh.
thought we
Yeah, it
agreed
is.
on that
And
at
it's
the
a
last meeting.
definition.
Hoyt's definition is different, that's why I'm asking.
No, it isn't. Isn't it 45 and 20?
He has a definition of canopy, but not high canopy tree.
Wait.
No,
High
no.
canopy,
Well, I'm
is
willing
high
to
tree
negotiate
able to
that.
attain a
In
minimum
fact,
height
I'm
of
probably
45
willing to
feet
give
and a
that
canopy
away.
spread of 20 feet. He's
Okay.
got high canopy tree defined.
He
Exactly.
says a tree able to attain a minimum
That's a
height.
tree. He's
High-
got both high canopy tree and tree defined.
Where does he have high canopy?
No, he
tree
High
doesn't.
defined?
canopy is line 41 and 42.
Of what
No,
section?
go on.
Definitions, 253-3.
Where are you looking at? There's only one.
Oh, there it
Right
is,
here.
okay.
253-3,
High
high canopy tree.
And native tree, not canopy tree.
No, that's high canopy tree,
Right.
that's native tree, and then on the next page is tree.
Right.
We got 3 different definitions
Right, well, I
that have
think
the word tree in them.
But let's stick with high canopy tree right now.
And we have street tree and protected tree.
High canopy tree,
Which I'm
Well,
still
why don't we
worried.
just leave it in definitions? Why are we?
we're not, we're just changing the definition.
Why?
Because we have it written one way, he has it another way, it's just a matter of verbiage.
Okay,
High canopy tree, okay?
Okay.
Hoyt's not saying that it must be native.
oh,
So
okay, I got it.
Do you want a native tree, because that's your native thing. If you use Hoyt's, it doesn't say native.
Yeah.
Why is that buzzing?
Special paper.
Sorry.
I would prefer that it be canopy.
So is the definition of a high canopy tree a native tree able to maintain a minimum height of 45 feet and a canopy spread of 20 feet at maturity? Or is it just a tree, is what I'm getting at?
Why is that critical?
Native, because it's,
Because natives.
native's a
different
much
from
smaller
non-natives.
list.
I'm going back.
No, you're covering up the microphone.
That was our intention. when
Right.
is that we defined a high canopy tree as
The one that we wanted was a native high canopy, not just any high canopy.
Well, and I hate to go in and make you guys do this, but you're gonna have to go back now and her list has to include native trees.
Yeah,
Do what?
Her list is gonna have to include native trees.
It does.
It does,
Her list does?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
don't you,
Yes.
didn't we talk about you were gonna make an asterisk or some kind of
We talked about-
identifier to indicate what's native?
Yes, and we talked about whether it was native to southern Delaware, Rehoboth Beach, or whether it was native to all of Delaware.
I'm trying to give that up.
And
But-
she said that we had to do all of
'Cause they're-
Delaware.
Because you're talking
Right,
about river
southern
birches.
coastal.
Well, you have two definitions here. You have high canopy tree, and right underneath you have native tree.
Right.
Native tree is a tree species that is known to grow naturally in Delaware. So a high canopy tree, theoretically then, would be a tree species that is known to grow naturally in Delaware that is able to maintain a height of blah, 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 but we don't need to repeat it twice. So are we putting native in front of?
Please.
Well, I think
So-
native
yes.
has to be above high canopy,
Okay,
first of
Okay.
all. And do you like the definition of native tree?
That's fine.
yes, I like
Fine.
native.
Fine. Oh, do you, Liz, like a tree species that is known to grow naturally in Delaware? Is that
That's what we have now,
adequate?
yeah.
Okay.
So a high canopy tree definition is now a native tree able to attain a minimum height of 45 feet and a canopy spread of 20 feet at maturity.
Thank you.
Done?
Done.
No,
Native
no,
tree.
not at all, not at all, I'm
Wait,
sorry, I'm not gonna give that up. So, if a tree is native, if it's in Delaware. If a tree is a high canopy tree, okay, which is serving a need, all right, but it's not native,
Okay.
all right?
Okay.
Let's address that when we get to minimum density requirements. Okay?
I agree with Hoyte. What he's
So
saying
leave the word-
is,
okay, leave the
a high
word
canopy
native.
tree,
Okay, good.
but we
You
can
can
call it
find
a
it.
Leave
native
the
high
word
canopy
native
tree.
out of the definition.
Thank you.
Okay,
That
native's
was
coming
what I
back,
was
yeah.
Thank you,
trying to-
Hoyt. Thank you, Hoyt.
All right, you're right.
You're right.
Okay,
God, we don't say that often,
Thank
Hoyt,
you.
you better know that.
Thank you.
all right,
Okay.
now,
A
minimum,
tree.
All
minimum,
recorded for you.
I'm sorry,
All right, no,
It's all
hey,
recorded.
while we're here, can we
Go back and listen.
Yeah.
native tree, is that okay?
Yep.
Tree species that is known to grow naturally in Delaware.
Yep.
All right, now you got two definitions done. All right,
you good?
yes, okay, and, hold on, because I can only type so
I'm
fast.
kind of lost.
We are
over here.
taking out of 225-3-6, the high canopy tree part.
All right, I'm sorry, where are we?
What line are we?
We are
We're at
on,
104.
Have we just
Line
killed
102.
253?
Oh, that's right, we
No,
still have,
we
we
only
need to
killed
put a
part of
dagger
it.
in the heart of
What's
this
left?
253.6.
we just took out the part about high canopy tree.
I already deleted it and moved it to definitions. I
Yeah.
don't have a
All right.
253.6
Not
anymore.
definitions, to the city arborist.
Yeah, back up
Yeah.
there.
All right, so now that we're taking that out, do we need to put
We don't need to put anything,
tree
we're gonna eliminate
species
the
not
whole thing.
listed may only be planted with written permission of the city arborist back in the city arborist section?
Where are you?
The last line of 253-6. On
Okay.
your sheet, it is 109.
Read what you
Okay.
have for 253.4-C. Just please,
Well,
if
that's
you
what I was
would.
asking before, is there a list of trees we can't plant?
Okay, so 253-4C, the city arborist shall develop and maintain a current approved species list available on the city website. Would you add after that, tree species not listed may also be planted with written permission of the city?
Yes.
Yes, I would.
Then we can eliminate the one y'all want to eliminate, if you do
Right.
that.
Okay.
Okay. Is that the proper place to put it?
Yes, it is.
And that also tells the,
Oh,
In fact, I thought
That
that
was
was
mine.
gonna go in there.
well,
but
that was my question.
Okay, good.
All right.
Well, then we're
So,
gonna-
So, again,
Great.
just to be clear, we're scratching 253.6.
Correct.
Yes,
you.
as long as you're willing to give up your southern coastal.
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
that was a.
Okay,
last
so now
month.
you guys can cut it.
All right. Minimum tree density.
Yeah, I've accepted all of Hoyt's edits with the exception of my notes, so.
For what? For tree
For-
minimum
for
density?
all kind of stuff. All kind of stuff, let's see.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, so once again, the numbers are still in question because we don't know.
Yes.
What you got?
Those are my
Oh,
comments
you'll
on
get
your
comments
comments.
on my comments,
The trouble is
okay.
I can't read them.
Oh, I can't read them.
No, you're not supposed to read mine.
Oh, excuse me.
I
Can we
can't
take
read
out
mine.
tree? A living woody plant having a well-defined stem and more or less well-defined crown.
Keep it in there.
Okay.
We gotta keep a definition of tree in there.
Okay, I just have a question
Okay.
before we even go into the meat of this. What's the rationale of lumping everything in a residential use lots, commercial, mixed use, residential, and other lots? Why not break those down into separate categories? What's the rationale of having them all there, when then afterwards you have to have all the stipulations?
Give me a line number or something that you're referring to.
He's looking at 115.
Line
I'm
115.
looking at-
115.
Yeah, every residential use property, you scratched it out and included all residential use lots, including commercial, mixed use, and residential and other lots. It just doesn't read.
Lot is the defined term.
So you're saying all lots, really? It's not, you don't even need to say all of them. It's just all of the lots.
What?
You could do that.
Residentially used lots? Scratch all?
Oh, well, here, this is
Is that what you're
interesting.
saying?
All commercial lots do not have to have a minimum of one healthy existing tree. That's a problem.
Now, where do you see that?
Line 115, Hoyt's edit is that all residentially used lots, it's a little confusing, including all commercial. So essentially you're saying if there's commercial use in if there's residential use in a commercial district. So, okay, I get it. Never mind. All residentially used lots, including all commercial mixed-use residential.
So were you saying all
Yeah.
residentially used lots,
So all lots.
including
continue.
those lots in
All lots.
commercial, mixed use, residential, and other areas?
Yes.
That's an entirely different interpretation of the zoning code than we've had up to now.
Can you elaborate on that?
The tree code, the tree ordinance has not applied to commercial zones in the past.
I think it
Even if they were used
Even
for residential.
Residential, yes.
I'm not entirely sure, and I'll tell you just why I recall, and maybe Liz can help me with this, but I remember when the owner of Finn's came, Finn's has 2 apartments up above, and he had a tree on the property, I believe, and he had to.
No, they were
no?
making
They were making improvements.
a couple years ago.
A couple of years ago, he was making improvements.
Was this Sir Guy's or?
Well,
No,
this
no,
one
since
was
I've been
Finn's.
here.
It's
But yeah, the old Sir Guys.
The old Sir Guy.
It was the old Sir Guy's.
Yeah, it was
The
old Sir
people that
Guy's.
own that.
But no, it's
That's
the
when
guy
he
that
was
owns
putting
it
the
is
elevator in
Finn's.
and making it
And he
handicap.
was doing improvements, which
Addition,
meant
I
addition.
believe.
Yeah, and he has 2 apartments, so it's a mixed use in a commercial zone.
Because in the tree code, it talks about dwelling units.
Dwelling units. And
Right.
he has 2 dwelling units in a commercial, on a commercial lot with a commercial use. And what happened with the tree? There were trees on the property, I believe. Or he was told he had to plant trees.
Yeah, because he has dwelling units. You have to have 2 trees per dwelling unit.
He was doing improvements that met the, whatever,
Pulled in minimum density
pulled
requirements.
in the
So-
minimum density requirement. And so he was told he would have to plant trees, and he had to ask for a variance
So my
in
intent.
order to not plant trees. So the current code does require,
Yeah. So
that
my
you have
intention
trees.
here is to get
Yeah.
rid of this dwelling unit business, okay? You need 3 trees for the lot. Forget if you're whatever it is.
Well, what you're trying to do there is change the zoning code. though.
yep,
I'm sorry?
What you're trying to do there is change the zoning code.
Because,
That's the
how
zoning.
am I trying to change the zoning code?
Because right now, what if you got 100% lot coverage? How are you gonna put a tree in it?
We have houses like that though, like pre-existing, non-conforming.
and I've written a thing on there that I think,
When Sturgis
There's
and I
an
did it, we
exception.
actually
That goes
put
to
in
my
there
natural area
that if you
argument.
can't do it, again,
If you
Yeah.
have a building covering 100% of your lot and you can't
Right.
do it, you shouldn't have to go to a board to get them to say it's okay that you can't do it.
Yeah, I put on line, and we drafted line 151. Exceptions to minimum tree density requirements are permitted for existing properties which contain mixed residential and commercial use in zones where 100% lot coverage is allowed, or existing properties with multi-unit residential structures with an adequate natural area. So we were essentially kind of saying, they're places that are kind of, we're saying
Like
you're
Finns.
grandfathered.
Like
Yeah,
Finns.
like Finns.
But that also would apply to all new construction too, the way that reads. To me,
Well-
that would apply to the same as, say, like 48 Wilmington, where they back up to residential, so they have backyard setback. Then they also have dwelling units, now they have the parking spaces, and they also have the 2 tree requirement.
Well, this
So
says
that'd be
exceptions to
eliminating
minimum are permitted for existing properties, so properties existing at the time of the writing of this code. I mean, and that, I didn't say that in there, or we didn't say that in there. But essentially, it's, you know, if you did a new build
Mhm.
of a multi-unit, the tree code would apply to you. You would have to reserve natural space if you were building residential in commercial, or you were doing multi-unit, or you were doing mixed use. But we're just saying that somebody like Finn's
Mhm.
wouldn't have had to do that.
What you're talking about also is a situation where if you're building back in commercial, it's difficult to imagine being able to build something residential in the commercial zone because of the minimum lot size for each dwelling unit. You hate dwelling units, but if you've got a 5,000 square foot lot, you've got a problem if you want to put 3 or 4 apartments on it.
I agree. And again, my focus has been on lots, okay? Just the lot, forget what's on it. So if, for example, you have a commercially zoned property, okay? And the lot is used for residence, I mean, they're all up and down,
There was a new one.
Lake Drive,
Yep.
whatever it is over there.
Like brand new from last year.
Yeah.
House built on a
Okay,
commercial lot.
and there's houses on those things. Those houses should be required to have 3 trees or whatever. You know, it should apply to them.
What's your problem with the word dwelling unit?
Oh, well, my problem with the word dwelling unit is because, as somebody's already suggested, if you have a house and a garage apartment on a property, you now have to have 4 trees, okay? Because you have to have 2 per dwelling unit. I want to get rid of that. As far as I'm concerned, that property, you only need 3 trees.
All right, so why couldn't you say all lots having a dwelling unit?
No, I don't want to say dwelling unit.
That's kind of what I was thinking. Any lot,
That has
instead
a
of
dwelling.
it trying to explain any lot that's used residentially, no matter where it's located, any
Oh,
lot
oh,
containing
oh,
1 or
oh,
more
oh,
dwelling
okay.
units.
Oh, okay, all right.
Any
Keep
lot
going.
having at least 1 dwelling unit, and then everything else here makes sense.
Doesn't the zoning code have a specific definition of differentiation between, I mean, there's mixed-use properties, there's I think that's when Sturgis and I did it, we came up with residential use property, because residential use property was not a mixed-use property, it was a different,
Mixed use was pretty much eliminated from.
it's its
the zoning
own
code.
thing. So residential use, where we were originally wrote it, was just residential use properties. Then we added the line that's got, it says exceptions to minimum requirements are permitted for existing properties which contain mixed residential and commercial use. In zones where 100% lot coverage is allowed, or existing properties with multi-unit residential structures with inadequate natural area, which is where natural area definition came
I
in.
think it's almost the reverse of that, is you have someone who bought a commercial property,
Right,
which has no restrictions, really.
right,
And now they're gonna tear down that commercial building,
right.
and under the current code, they could just they could go almost to the whole setback, they could do everything.
Exactly.
So we wouldn't want them to do that to a commercial lot.
Why?
Why not?
They bought a commercial lot, why can't they cover the whole thing with
Commercial
whatever
lots,
they want?
Well,
you're
here's-
Because
here's
they're-
And what if that house
devil's-
they put on it in 2 years wants to turn into a restaurant?
Devil's
They
advocate,
bought a
should everybody
commercial
not
lot
have to pay their fair share here? If we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
everybody's gotta have 3 trees, Why should a resident who's using it for a single family with 50% natural area have to have their 3 trees, but a business
Okay.
Because the
doesn't have that
zoning
many.
code says that, you can cover your
Because of
whole
my
lot.
natural area, I
100%.
Well, so a lot of municipalities
So-
where they have tree codes actually have it stricter on the businesses, and it's essentially, and not to say we want to get into this, but it does become pay to play. Like
Then the
if
zoning
we-
code needs to change, saying you can't cover 100% of your lot.
No, it doesn't. You just like, so the way it is now, you just pay your fee. Say instead you didn't have to come to Park and Shade, you just write your check because yes,
That
we
doesn't
can't
save a
plant a
tree.
tree.
But that doesn't save a tree, and the whole point of this code is
Yes,
to save
it
a tree,
does,
not to
because then
collect
it
money.
goes into the mitigation fund, which is then used to plant trees or prune trees or potentially fund grant programs for people to have trees planted on their private property or whatever the city.
But that
deems
that
fit.
pain is what's causing us to lose trees, because people are just paying. And you guys have already said there's hardly any area left to plant any more trees publicly. So if you want trees on commercial property, then the zoning code needs to be written so that there's a 5-foot setback somewhere to put a tree on.
But the Ark is a fine example of something that covers 100%, and they can't plant a tree if they want to.
The what is?
The Ark, it's condo.
Right.
On Roosevelt.
But what was
Right.
built on, what was built on Lake Avenue?
A house. What do you mean, like a house in a
But it's
commercial?
not on the entire property, right? There's land
It's
left
just a
around
regular
it.
house.
It's
Yeah,
a
it's
dwelling unit.
Yeah.
So they're taking a commercial property, they put a house on it.
Right.
Don't we want them to put trees on that lot? Yeah.
I
That's
would
what
say
I'm trying to
no,
say.
because it could go back to be a commercial property and not needed. If you want to say if you're going to put a residence on your commercial property, it's no longer a commercial property, then yes.
But it's zone, it's zone commercial.
I disagree. I think if it's used residentially and there's room, there should be trees. I mean, I think
I
you should.
agree.
And.
Okay,
I
then
mean,
if
that's-
somebody takes it over and wants to turn it into something else, can they then take the trees out?
If they're gonna
Or
build
have
a
you
structure
just
on top of
limited-
it.
If they're gonna build a structure to 100%,
Yeah.
which it would be a
If they
permitted
go
use
to
of
no
it.
longer
But
a
if they're
You're
dwelling
saying
unit.
put
They're
them
not gonna
in,
use it.
so one year somebody builds a house there, they go, hey, I don't wanna put a house there, I want this to be a store.
Right.
And the people that have the store say, okay, I wanna come back and, build out the rest on the front of this, then they can take all the trees out.
Well, let's use a more practical example. Someone builds a house and they decide, I can't afford to live here, I'm gonna turn into a B&B.
Right.
And I wanna expand that house now so that I can get more income.
Right. They're gonna be able to do it because it's a commercial property with no setbacks.
But
It's a zoning issue,
but
not a
parking
tree
is
issue.
what's gonna kill them.
Yeah.
The trees aren't gonna kill them, it's the parking that's gonna kill them.
And that's when in your landscape code, then you have a section that says, for every parking spot, you need a 2.5-foot landscape strip that your car overhangs, so you have something green in your parking lot, which most municipalities have.
But if it's used residentially in commercial, then you have to have trees.
Well, Susan's saying no.
Susan said no. I say yes. I say yes. I mean, here's what we're saying,
Give me your language again
all
about the dwelling.
residentially
Well,
used
I mean,
lots.
but I would say that any lot with a dwelling unit
Uh-huh.
has to meet these minimum density requirements. But
Including
I
all
see exactly
commercial.
what Susan's saying, so I don't know where I stand on it.
Oh,
And I would say our code needs to match the zoning code. If it's a residential use property, it has a residential tree requirement. If it's a commercial property, it has a commercial tree requirement, regardless of what's put on it.
Then we have to take
So-
all this language out of here that mixes it all
So
together.
the people on the commercial properties
Yep.
on lake don't have to have trees, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they do.
I know they do, but I'm
Because it's
saying that they don't have
residential
to.
use.
Maybe you shouldn't be able to put a
I think-
residential house on a commercial property.
I can't do that.
I don't know.
This
Or maybe it
doesn't
should be
does our current code say if you have a residential use in a commercial zone, you have a tree requirement? It does.
Read you what it says.
That was my example with Finn's on Rehoboth Avenue.
Each
with two
it's
apartments
each
upstairs.
residence lot in a residence district other than a single-family residence lot, and each commercial or mixed-use or other lot not in a residence district shall have at least 2 trees per dwelling unit.
Yeah,
If you have a dwelling unit, you gotta have 2 trees.
yep, in commercial.
It's the
No,
current.
not commercial.
Not even
Anything
commercial.
other
That's
than a
the current.
single
Other
family
than a
residence.
single-family residence, so multiple units
That's the
or
current
mixed
code.
use.
Yes.
Right.
That's the current code.
Which again, the first section that we wrote was only for residential use properties, nothing to do with commercial.
But that's
So-
residential use in a commercial zone.
So then it should say residential zone, and then we should have one that says
Well-
multi-use zone,
Well,
then we
that's
should
what-
have one that
And
says
that's what we
commercial
were
zone.
talking
That's what-
about last week.
Would
Yes.
like to see.
And
We
that's
would
what
like
we
to
should
see
do.
that separated
And I
out.
think that we did that, we
That
just
would mirror
didn't
the
call it a
zoning
different
code, right?
section, we said
You
exceptions.
just define each
Yeah, we
section,
tried
each
to
zone
cover, we
different.
tried to
Right.
do it all.
Because we didn't get into zoning code of what all the different
Right.
zones
But then
were.
you go commercial, residential, and mixed use.
But this should match the zoning code.
I agree.
That's what it should say, and that's exactly what this says. If you just take where Hoyte has striked out green and put a B next to it, multi-use property, it pretty much says that.
Can you say that again?
Okay, so if you look at lines 120, 121, 122, and 123,
Which have been struck out?
that have been stricken out, yes, you could just simply call that multi-use zoned properties and rewrite it, because that's basically
That's
what it
exactly
says.
what we were talking about, yes.
That's what I just don't get where I'm going fast enough, but yes.
No, I mean, Sturgis and I were talking
Yes.
about defining.
But all the
three
other
different-
stuff that's added underneath, I don't know where that goes, because I'm not sure where that came from, so.
Can we just backtrack a little bit? Are we all on the same page with the whole concept that we have here? The minimum tree density,
How do you mean?
first and fourth trees, all that stuff, fractional areas.
Uh,
Because this is the meat and potatoes.
It
right
is,
here. We're
yeah.
still arguing about form, mixed use versus commercial use, whatever. But are we all good on this part of it?
Using the term tree rather than the term property.
let's see, how you rephrased that, yeah, you rephrased that in
I
line,
put it
what,
back to what it was.
127. You did. Yeah, but I liked your language better than ours.
No, I'm talking about, I'm just up in the damn,
No, Pete's jumped ahead.
No, he hasn't. No,
Well,
he's,
yeah,
he's in the first sentence.
He's jumped to line, 118.
Oh, is that where we are?
Did we-
116, 118.
Okay.
Yeah, you're looking at, okay, so Pete, are you asking about the one tree per 1,666 square feet? Is that
Minimum
what you're
2-inch
asking,
caliper,
minimum?
yes.
I think we're
I think
okay
we're all
on
good
that.
on
We're
that.
all good
Yeah.
on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're all good on
For
that.
residential properties.
For
Residential
any-
Yes,
use, so-
residential use.
Yes.
So I need to go back up to the line 115
Okay.
and say, are we gonna use the term every residential use property?
What's it
We
called
need-
in the zoning code,
I think
Gene?
we need to mimic
Residential
the
zone,
zoning code.
what's it called in the zoning code? What's the residential part of the zoning code called? Does anybody
That's
have it?
not
R1,
easy.
R2.
That's-
Residential,
Yeah,
So-
they identify all that stuff.
so R1 is just residential, R2 is residential with different setbacks, R3 is mixed use? Or is just residential?
R3 is, you put townhouses and apartments on.
Yeah, townhouses.
So we should
Okay.
put that in there
So-
specifically?
We don't have much of that.
Just townhouses, not commercial, right?
Yeah, but put that in there.
So this should be
R1,
called
R2,
R1, R2,
R1S,
R3, should be the
as
title of the
defined in
heading.
270 point whatever.
Something, you're on the, yeah, I don't know about the R3, but I totally agree with you.
R1, 2, and so instead of residential use property, this should say
Property zoned R1 or R2.
R1, R2.
There's an R1S.
How about R1S?
There is an R1S.
Oh, do you have it up there? Thank you. What are they in?
R1S also.
R1.
Yeah.
R1S. Go ahead, Joan. What you got? R1S,
R2
R2.
and R3.
Is that it?
What do you do about the case of the ER
ER,
district?
What's
ER,
ER?
put it in.
Educational residential.
ER, education, it's the school. 3 trees for every
It'd be
school.
very interesting what we do with that. It's very, that's sell the school.
About
We
300.
Yeah, I think we are.
ER is a separate one?
Yeah.
All right, I'm-
Let's,
Yeah, but we gotta.
excuse me,
do a
let
little
me help here.
investigation.
We can clean up that specific language later.
Well, We've cleaned up stuff enough that you
All
have
right,
a hand in.
whatever.
But can you guys are skipping ahead here. 253-37, what are we calling it?
7, not 37.
Okay,
It's actually
113,
six.
what's
We're
it
still
called?
calling it minimum tree density requirements, aren't we?
I think that's appropriate.
Minimum tree, take out property.
Right.
Minimum tree
Minimum
density
tree
requirements.
requirements.
Okay, got it.
All right.
And then what I'm
Now you
hearing,
can go.
Now,
what I'm
what's-
hearing folks say, they
let's-
wanna have a residential,
Let's,
a mixed use sort of, or and a commercial, and sort of break that
I
out.
think we're gonna mirror the zoning code.
Right,
That's what
right,
I heard
right.
us say.
Right.
Perfect,
So
so
let's put that in there.
you are on R1, R1S, R2, R3.
Yeah, and-
every-
And all the other ones, you know. So you're gonna have to put commercial and mixed use.
Well,
ER.
let's just stick with the R1, R2
Okay.
area.
All right,
first.
R1, 2, 3. These residential use properties, that's just, we can fix, these residential use properties, okay? Must have a minimum of 1 healthy existing tree, 1 newly planted, minimum 2-inch caliper tree,
It's your original language, that's.
fractional, and we're gonna add the 833.5,
Yep.
right? Okay, so these residential use properties, taking out all that other stuff,
Well, wait a minute, we're gonna put back in the exceptions to the minimum requirements.
must have a minimum of 1 healthy existing tree, 1 newly planted 2-inch caliper tree, prairie, or 1 additional tree, period. All right. The first and fourth,
That's covered
Why don't-
elsewhere.
Yeah, down
That's
on-
covered elsewhere. So we're gonna jump down to the next sentence, which is scratched out. Exceptions to the minimum requirements, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, down in B.
You guys wanted that back in there.
That will go in a different section,
Oh, okay, all
right?
right.
Because
Oh,
it's
okay,
no
okay,
longer
okay,
R1,
okay.
R2.
All right, okay. All right, what's next, Pete?
I don't know. We ended at requiring an additional tree, correct?
We've left that in there, fractional
The
area.
first and fourth tree.
Yeah, that's
Okay, where-
elsewhere. We don't need that
Yeah.
in
Well,
there.
where is that?
If you go down
I'm not gonna tell
under,
you.
Well, I
if
see
you
it's
go
right
down
there.
under B.
got it.
Okay,
We are getting punchy.
yeah, I think we're getting a little punchy here.
Well, time out. Where are we gonna put commercial mixed use? I mean, do we have to
Well, see,
define
here's-
that
Yeah, I mean,
in A? Do we have to identify
No,
that in A?
we're gonna do residential in A.
Oh,
We'll do
okay,
mixed
okay.
use or whatever it's called.
Here's what
in
you
B.
have. Can you guys see that? All right, the blue is what you confirmed works. Sorry. The blue is what you confirmed worked. Now you have all this other stuff underneath of it. Okay, so you have R1, R1S, R2, R3. These residential use properties, blah, 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 blah. That's what you have. You need to, under this section, if we're gonna keep what we had, you need to put that there. So that's, okay?
okay, well,
So what are these,
well, I would get rid of all the language down to B,
so what happened to the first and fourth tree and all that
because
stuff?
that's repeated in B. He rephrased it, and Hoyte did, and I think he did a better job than you and I did.
Okay, so I'm
In my
taking
opinion.
out, so we jump right down to.
Jump down to
In
B.
meeting
Yeah.
the minimum tree density requirements set forth in subsection A above.
Do you have issues with B?
No, I don't think I did.
Okay, so if we go to C,
But you-
is this where we're gonna start dealing with some of these other types of properties, like commercial and mixed use?
Well, I'm kind of thinking
I mean, where does
that
that
what
go?
I'm hearing is that, that A is going to be residential, and then with,
There's paragraph.
and then you're gonna have B is gonna be, mixed use, and C is gonna be
Yeah.
commercial, and just we'll list under that whatever applies to each of those. Now, if we do that, we're gonna end up repeating a lot of language.
No, we don't wanna do that.
And because some of the same things apply.
But is that a bad thing?
I
Not
don't know.
for,
I
not
don't
for,
know.
I think people should actually, as much as I hate a lot of words,
Uh-huh.
I think if we're gonna match the zoning code, that you should be able to not have to read another section of the code to find out what you're gonna do with yours. So if you're gonna do this, yes, you're gonna have to repeat it for residential mixed use.
That's
So,
fine.
here's what I'm envisioning. You got A is residential.
Correct.
B and or C or whatever it is would be commercial. B and C would be mixed use, or B would be both commercial, and I don't know how that would work, but anyway, so you scope that out, residential, scope out commercial, scope out mixed use,
Right.
and then apply your requirements.
Oh, you would like to kind of define each one of those things?
Yeah,
but
that's
the-
what we did in A. We did it.
Yeah.
What we did in A was to define what residential, how the residential dwellings would be
Well, one of the things
regulated.
I think we may be thinking is maybe not all the things would uniformly apply in each area, in
Okay,
each zone.
well,
And as a possibility.
let's find out.
Okay.
All right,
Can we agree that paragraph B, which begins on line 123, relates to residential?
Definitely.
Yes.
Okay. So we know that what we're talking about right now will at the very least relate to other residential stuff.
Right.
I mean, everything in B, I think, relates to residential.
Right.
I don't have a problem with anything. I did see the thing about the front yard, but I don't have a problem with that either. I think it's paragraph 3.
C,
Um,
you down to C?
Don't get
I'm
there
not,
yet.
I'm not in C yet.
Don't
I'm
go there
sorry.
yet.
somebody
Give
needs
me a
to pull
line
up the
number.
zoning code so we can get the right terminology. Or get a copy, do you have a copy of the zoning code in paper form that I can look at?
I don't.
Is there one in the zoning?
She's
office?
asking for someone to pull up the zoning code online.
Or just,
Here,
everybody have paper anymore, like a
here,
bowl?
here.
I don't.
Well, yeah, but it's like
It's,
this
yeah,
stuff.
it's
Here,
this
hang
big.
on,
It's this
I'm
big.
coming, I'm coming.
All right, so I just need to know what it's called. And then you
Do you
can
want-
basically just put that in there with exceptions to minimum requirements are permitted for these properties.
So what exception and how do you get it?
The exception essentially would be that at the adoption of this code, anything existing prior to the adoption of this code, if you had an existing property that has mixed use or a multi-unit residential where you don't have room to satisfy the minimum,
What if they do have room?
this is an exception
You
for
want
those who
districts,
don't.
is that what you want?
Okay. So
Yeah,
in
that's
other words,
perfect.
you've got a
That's
mixed
exactly-
use where they've
okay,
built
all right.
to 100%
Just
of their
touch
property.
on
Yep,
there if
that's-
you want.
that's
and
all I
this
need
is
to
your
do.
paper
Bins,
here.
he wouldn't have had to come for a variance to the tree code because he was pre-existing.
But he was adding on, so.
He was, but I guess what I'm saying is, he didn't have any room for any trees. And I guess it
It's a
just to me,
slippery slope. I mean, he was 100% covered, so
Right.
it's a little different.
Right.
But like,
that's what I'm saying. It says 100% covered. Exceptions, it's for mixed use, residential, and commercial, in zones where 100% lot coverage allowed, or existing properties with multi-unit residential structures with inadequate natural area.
what's inadequate?
Less than,
But you get what I'm getting at, is this
it's
is
fuzzy. It's
way
getting a little
too
fuzzy,
vague,
a
and
little
there's-
fuzzy. We can
What do you
we can
do?
tighten
What do you
that
do,
up.
son?
Yeah.
We're talking
Right.
about exceptions. She was bringing
Well,
up
it's just,
the
you get an
Is it on
exception,
there?
it just has to be way more specific.
this that you moved.
How you
to
get an
the next
exception,
page.
who can have an exception,
We can
that
clean
type
it
of
up.
stuff.
We can clean it
And
up.
who's determining inadequate area, natural area? You can plant a tree in a 3x3 pit,
Got it,
so,
got it.
I mean,
According to this, they don't even have a section called that.
They don't have what?
They don't have a section called mixed use, it must be under commercial. Well, that's kind of crazy.
Isn't that what they've been talking about, wanting to create a mixed use? Yeah.
What?
It's fraud, it's fraud.
C3? All right, so it's,
Oh, you're in signs, you're in signs, never mind.
More
Let me get back, I'll find it. You were in signs, I was gonna say that, we need to rewrite this
I
code.
was in science.
Here it is, right here.
Yeah.
R1, R2, C1, 2, and 3.
So hit C3, just touch it.
See, they should all be mixed, C1, 2, and 3. they're all different types of commercials. So C1 would be,
Fire stations, all right. Any trees on the fire station property? Okay.
yeah, and this, again, this is when Service and I did this. This is why we strictly had residential use. Residential or mixed residential. Because it's gonna get really, if you try and match, well, like I said, if you do this, matching this, and all zoning codes are written in tiers like this, so. Now I'm questioning again what we just said. Do we want to not just put it back the way it was?
You mean
Residential
to the
properties.
current code?
No, to the way that we had it written originally without following the zoning code, just because we want trees where, if there's somebody sleeping on the property, we want trees on it, basically is what you guys are getting at.
But no, because you were excluding apartments.
Not in what Sturgis and I wrote, we weren't. We said anything that was residential had to have trees. It didn't matter what it was unless 100% of the lot was covered.
So that's kind of going to what
That's
Pete
how
was
we had
saying
it.
about let dwelling unit drive.
Now
What you were saying?
But you said you didn't want that for a commercial property that had a house.
Well, I didn't, but now looking at that and going back to the 12th hour with Sturgis and I think that was when we finally just said, and it wasn't that came up, it was something else that came up about residential, and I can't remember what it was. She probably could remember. Because now reading through this, I'm realizing that I did read through all these before, and something we said we couldn't do this. And I think it went back to my original argument, which was things going back to commercial use after they were residential.
Is it possible
So-
to,
Divide it into two categories and lump all the residentials.
you have your R1, R2, whatever they all are, and then all other properties, now just not above, and then go from that point on.
Only if you
I'd
leave that
like-
exception in there about commercial with residential on it. You're back to that one little point. If somebody takes a commercial and makes it residential, what do you do? That's the only sticking point that I see in doing it the way we had it
The way we had it,
originally. Yep, versus listing all these.
what do you think, Liz?
I'm not sure I don't even think, do you guys want there to be requirements for mixed use? Apartment complexes?
I think it's important to
We're trying to
prevent
encourage
somebody,
trees.
to prevent somebody from taking a lot or two lots, tearing down the houses and putting up townhouses or whatever. And because it's now a townhouse or a multi-use instead of a single-family home, they're not putting up as many trees.
But that's a zoning issue, and the zoning code doesn't make you do that. I mean, that's where the zoning code would say, you know, you're putting a residential use on a commercial property, by zoning code, you must meet these setback requirements. If you're, you know, going back to what we have written, more than 50% of the building is being, if it's considered new construction under the building code. That,
So then it's covered.
then it was covered with what we had originally. Exceptions to minimum requirements are permitted for existing properties which contain mixed residential and commercial use in zones where 100% lot coverage is allowed, or existing properties with multi-use residential structures with inadequate natural area.
But what about a new construction? What about someone takes two houses and tears them down? They buy both lots and they want to do something with those two lots where they're gonna shove in 8 or 10
And
townhouses.
They're
theoretically, you
limited to
would be-
4,500 square feet.
Theoretically, you'd be allowed to do it unless zoning code says if you are using a commercial property for residential, you need setbacks.
Unless it's commercial
It boils
property.
down to whether or not you need setbacks. If you don't have setbacks, you can't plant trees.
But some commercial properties do have setbacks.
Right.
I mean,
But
they're
rather than list them
existing
all-
ones, they're not currently built.
Well, you guys
Yeah,
know
they're
better
not-
than me, but isn't when it backs up to residential?
Yes,
It has a
yes,
backyard
it has
setback.
to have a backyard setback if commercial backs
Right.
up to a residential.
Yes,
Yeah, because that's what 48 Wilmington had. that.
Exactly.
because the
Yep.
Blue Moon's got,
I mean, there's always gonna be exceptions, but I mean, I think we had it fairly well covered, and that is what your board is for. That's what Liz is for first, saying, look, you know, I look at a building like mine, that's half and half. What's gonna happen when somebody tears that down someday? I'm
Gotcha.
half residential and half commercial,
Right.
you know, with plenty of areas that, are they gonna have to stay, are they gonna, you know what I mean, you can't.
Well,
Do you-
but I
you buy
guess
into
my,
that?
my response to that is,
Do you
what
buy
would
into
you
that?
like to see happen?
To
I would
that
like to see as
original
many
concept?
trees as possible, okay? I mean,
I don't know.
I'm
if
in
the
commercial, I like not seeing
I think
100% lot
code is only
coverage.
good.
I would like to see any new commercial have to have, you know, but I don't own a property that I'm trying to sell that is 100%.
I'm gonna
commercial
make,
now.
I'm gonna make a command decision here. So here's what I would like to do. I would like to hold in abeyance paragraph A. Just leave it as we had, whatever adjustments we made. But what I would like to do is to have, Susan, if you would, give us an alternate A, which takes us back to whatever you want to do, to what you were describing as the original suggestion you guys were making, okay? So you just put that right in there as alternate A. You follow me? And then,
Yeah, no.
so we've
I-
got something now. There's something on the table right now. I don't know what we did, but we've got something on the table, which we called A.
All right, how about we skip this section right now? And just,
Sorry?
what if we skip this one section right now,
Yeah,
because
no, and that's
it's
what I'm
the
saying.
meat of
So
everything.
give us an alternate A, and then
it shouldn't affect the rest of them.
everybody seemed to be good with B. How are we with C, D, and whatever the hell else is in here, to get us moving again?
I think you may have to just go over that one
It's not
completely
gonna
and
work.
go
It's
to,
not gonna work?
I think it's just gonna take a little more time than what we have right here, so I think we should go over it, get into these other ones, because I think we can knock the other ones out.
What other ones?
The 255-3-8, tree and landscape maintenance, tree
Oh,
maintenance.
oh, oh, oh.
I'm
You
saying,
wanna move to the
I'm
next
saying
section.
just, I'm gonna color it green for trees, and I think you should come back to this, because I'm not here tomorrow, so,
Oh, you're not gonna be here tomorrow? All right, we're gonna talk about that in a minute.
so that's what I'm saying, if you skip this one, we could get the other ones done, and then all you guys are left with is this
Have you got some,
to be green
have
section.
you got something you can send to me tonight?
Yeah, if
Okay.
you skip that part,
All right.
and I'm actually
Yeah, I
gonna,
mean, whatever
gonna put
you've
it
got to
back.
this point.
If Susan or somebody else can kind of take a stab at separating this into 3 sections, the residential, commercial, and mixed use. Yeah,
That's what I was
exactly.
trying
And
to.
that's what I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah.
But I think it's too much to do right now, and I
Yeah.
don't think it'd be that
All
hard.
right.
but I think you cannot do
So you,
a
what
good
you're
chunk of
saying
the
is
other
let's
ones.
move
Yeah.
on to, where the hell am
Yep.
We're down to C,
I? Tree maintenance.
Yep,
existing.
That's
maintenance.
exactly
Okay,
what I'm
is that
saying.
what we're doing? Tree
If that's
maintenance?
okay with you guys, I think that would
Requirements.
work, okay, alright.
All right.
Now, I have a question, just,
About tree maintenance?
I'm on C. Can I ask you about C? Line 138, 139?
Oh,
No,
she
we already
won't-
skipped
she won't
that.
leave
You
it alone.
skipped it?
All right, she won't leave it
I just
alone.
don't understand tree removal. I don't understand why you threw tree removal in there.
We're gonna cross that section
Now,
out.
let's,
And I'm gonna give you a sectional draft for tomorrow, and then you guys can fill in all the holes.
If you wanna work on that, sure.
Yeah, I don't wanna work on
Yeah.
it.
You don't
I
wanna
just
do
wanna
that
give you
one
an
right
outline
now.
that you can
Yeah.
fill in tomorrow.
Okay.
Let's just
okay.
leave it alone.
Then
I think you
I'll
should-
skip ahead.
I think
leave it
that's,
alone.
that's the gist of this entire code, is
All right.
that,
So we got about 7 or 8
Some of that
minutes,
is-
because I've got some other business we gotta do here.
Okay, got it.
oh, if you only have
So
7
we're
minutes, you're
looking
not
at,
getting done anyway.
Tree maintenance.
Tree maintenance. Trees and
Tree maintenance.
shall be maintained. What, did I have something?
First off, is that what you're calling it? Tree maintenance, takeout landscape?
Well,
He did, but we could put landscape back in.
I don't care. Not that I don't care, I shouldn't say that. You just tell me and I will write it.
Well, I think we decided we needed to put landscape somewhere.
so
Oh, we have it?
what I need to tell you about, whatever provision A, I'm looking at Sturgis's comments to 253A.
Okay.
The language that I've put in here is the language that we approved at, under the old
Gotcha.
code revision proposal. And that's what you see here.
Okay.
So that's,
Or does that mean it's set in stone?
no.
Okay. The suggestion that I made, the first sentence, is what's in the current code.
Mhm.
And Pete and I kind of had it, we looked at this together and we weren't real sure what hazardous meant. I just say healthy, non-hazardous, and debris-free. I guess I've talked to several people connected to this committee, and
Okay.
debris-free was one that was kind of question of like,
Yeah, I'm good.
what the heck
We don't
does
need-
that
yeah,
mean?
okay.
And the other thing that, that I thought that Pete and I liked about the existing language is that it talks about harboring insects or disease.
Mhm.
And I do think that the city arborist should have the authority to have people get rid of trees that are harboring disease,
Mhm.
that could affect other things in the city. How do you feel about that, Liz?
I think it was probably put in for the intent of something like Dutch elm, where it's just like rampant fatal, but you have to be careful because what if somebody complains to me about brown rot on their cherry and they say we want this person, my neighbor, to be forced to remove their tree because it's harboring brown rot and it's infecting my cherry. So we do have to mean something that seems simple, maybe isn't so simple.
If you, let's see.
Can you show her that language,
Yeah.
Sturgis?
This is in the existing code, Liz, right here. All trees shall be maintained.
Yeah, I've had
Life or
somebody
property or
argue
harbor
before
insects or
the
disease.
debris-free means that there shouldn't be ivy on the trunk of the tree, and they wanted us to force their neighbor to remove the ivy off the
Okay.
trunk of the tree.
Well, I made up a sentence about ivy, because I have
I have
problems
one
with
too.
ivy. You have one too?
I have one too.
I said ivy or other vines shall be removed from tree trunks or pruned to prevent them from growing onto branches and shading out foliage. Because,
Instead of, I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, just because if you let ivy or vines grow up into the tree and out on the branches, it kills the tree.
So instead
eventually-
of debris-free, I'm putting in free of parasitic and or invasive something, I can't read my writing. I cannot read that word. Such as ivy. Invasive plants, maybe, okay.
I'll tell you
So
the
free of
reason. Yeah.
parasitic and or invasive plants such as ivy.
Gotcha. Shall be maintained. I mean, do you think the city, do you think citizens, Liz, or the city should have no responsibility for limiting disease or pests on trees that are in the city?
No, I think we should. I mean, if somebody has an ash tree and it gets EAB and they just don't want to take it out, we should be able to force them to remove it.
Got it. How, any thought about
And
how we
would we
might
put that into
phrase that?
Yeah, how would we put that into a requirement?
Where is it on here somewhere right now?
It's not really.
Well, it's in the.
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
in-
the
it's in
original
Sturgis'
code,
language.
the original code just says all trees shall be maintained so they do not constitute a hazard to life or property or harbor insects or disease which constitute a potential threat to other trees within the city.
I think that's a fine way to phrase it.
Yeah.
Because you have to make the argument that they
And this,
threaten another tree.
this is really about, this is a sentence that's to apply to the city as well as private property owners. I think this is a global
Right.
sentence because I think that's actually from Article 1.
Are you getting this, Susan?
The other thing is I would like to add
Our
something that
stenographer
says,
over here.
Yeah,
Something-
I'm down to be.
Okay.
I would
have
like
one
to,
question.
I would like something like ivy or other vines shall be removed from tree trunks or pruned to prevent the vines from growing onto branches and shading out foliage. Just in conversation with Liz, Liz has said to me, some people like the look of ivy on their trees. And as far as I can tell, as long as it doesn't get up above onto the branches,
They like it on
it's
their
not
brick,
really.
on their brick walls, and it goes into the
Some people love
grout.
it.
I love ivy.
Oh, I do
Yeah.
too.
I actually plant ivy, that's why I don't live in the
I
city,
do
no, I'm
too.
kidding, but I do, I love
You
ivy.
know, there's
I think it's
nothing-
gorgeous,
I hear you.
yeah.
It's a good ground cover.
There's a
Hey,
house down, a few blocks down, Hickman around there, that their entire yard, they don't have grass, they just have ivy.
We
It's
had it
gorgeous.
growing up on our front, like,
Yeah.
entrance, and
Yeah.
if my parents were out there working on it every single time, they got a compliment on how beautiful it was.
Oh, I think it looks
Yeah.
great. If
So
you don't,
you
Wasn't
don't,
on a
you
tree,
don't
though.
want it to be wrapping around tree trunks and branches,
I don't care if it's on the trunk. I don't care.
but you don't want it to be on the branches.
I don't want it to get up onto the branches.
You go over Park Avenue, I guess you fixed that.
Because
didn't
you don't like the look.
We're on
No,
Park.
because it will kill the tree.
Well, isn't that
There's
already covered, that
the
all trees have to be
common
maintained to be
Thing in the
healthy?
middle of Park.
That right away.
I guess the reason
that-
that I'd
didn't
say
you
this
take
is
all that
because
ivy out
it's a
that was on the-
specific item in the code
Wisteria.
that
It's what?
It was mainly wisteria.
Oh, is it?
It- it would allow, first of all, it gives
Same deal.
information to citizens about what's healthy. And second of all, it allows the city to intervene should that specific problem arise.
So what you wanna do is something like,
Because we've talked about insects, we've talked about disease.
so vines such as ivy, which,
Shall not- I mean.
which, if they reach a certain height, or they
Permitted.
go to the branches or whatever, do constitute a potential threat to the tree and therefore should be pruned to a certain level.
Something like that there.
Is that where you're going with this?
Yeah, yeah.
So just keep it in the same vein rather than saying you can't have ivy
You can have-
growing.
You can have
Say,
ivy.
you can have ivy,
You can
but
have ivy.
it cannot affect the health of the tree.
Ivy must be maintained in a manner in which it will not destroy the tree,
Harm.
harm the tree.
Something like that. It could be other
That's perfect.
vines.
That's
or
exactly how we
something.
should word it.
Should be vines.
Okay, so can I get back up here just because you
Ivy or
guys
other-
skipped over a bunch of
So,
stuff?
what if somebody complains to me about that house with the like 1,000-pound wisteria vine on their tree? I have to go and tell them they have to cut it down?
Is anybody gonna complain?
Yes.
They are.
If
They
you ever
do.
ask me that question related to anything,
my
the answer
goodness.
is yes, of course people will complain. Yeah, I mean, it's
This is
just,
for a whole
No, I hear you.
But then what are you gonna do?
you can't, according
See,
to this,
once
I'm
she
gonna have
gets-
to write 'em a
once she
note and
gets
say
to
remove it.
complain.
Yeah, oh, okay.
But
What are you
honestly,
doing now?
if Liz went up to somebody's door and knocked on their door and said, hey, do you realize, I just wanted to give you a heads up that eventually, I know that ivy's gorgeous, it is gonna kill your tree.
Knocking on people's.
You should you should cut
She's
it
not
down a
doing
level
that.
or something. You know,
You
I
just
mean,
get little things, you stick them in their door.
do we need to put it in
So-
the
Yeah, the
code?
police would love
Should
that.
I take that as, you don't do that now?
Well,
Knock on
here's-
people's doors and offer them unsolicited advice.
Let's go back to
What's wrong with you?
Hi, I'm
Liz?
your
Isn't that what
friendly
we're paying
city
you for?
arborist.
Fun.
Let's go back to the wisteria example. So
Okay.
is this vine at this moment in time harming the tree?
No,
All
it's
right,
already been
so-
cut.
So then it's
Harm
already,
was done.
so it's resolved. I mean, by putting that
done with
language
it?
in,
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I think the example like the wisteria, and, you know, I don't mean any offense by this, but it's an exception. This is an exceptional tree, an exceptional vine and property. I would like to just have the city be able to do this. And you might notice when you look ahead to the section where it talks about enforcement, one of the things that's in there is
You've
that
got something in there right there.
well, no, this is what's your language, and your language it gives the arborist lots of discretion.
That's
It
a
is-
terrible word for a code, but okay.
I know, well, you know, it is. but-
Because, you know, somebody else who has a vine of ivy growing on their tree, it may be
Right.
special to them, more special than the big
Than the
wisteria vine
wisteria.
there. So, I mean, they're both invasive. Wisteria arguably is more harmful.
Yeah, I got it.
I mean, you gotta write this for including those exceptions because we get stuff off the wall all the time.
so where are we in this? Are we gonna put the
Yeah,
vines can't be
I'm
harmed
giving a
or what?
2-minute warning here.
Okay. I mean, there's another, you know, thing in the current code that just says you can't abuse trees. You know, you can't abuse trees. You know, you can't harm them in any way.
Yeah, but we're trying to, this is maintenance.
I know.
The language that Susan had was pretty much on point. It solved
Yeah,
the issue.
did you put that in? Yeah.
No, because I'm not even, I can put it in, but again, I like to finish that part above.
Well,
You
that's
guys skip A
interesting.
whole bunch of stuff again, that if you can just head back up 1 minute to A and B, we could finish down there and I
I'd
could
give up
finish
my,
C.
I'll give up my ivy.
Don't give up your ivy, just tell me
No,
what
no,
line,
she's got
what
a
line
nice
were you
little
putting the
sentence to
ivy
put in
on?
there.
What line?
I
What do
just.
you-
Where are you
I'm
though?
listening
What
to
line?
Liz, and Liz has
Are
a
you
really
still in
good
May?
point.
Are you going up?
What line are you on?
Oh, I don't
Just tell me
remember.
what line you're on.
She was talking about putting the original language from the current code
Oh, yeah,
for
that's where
tree
we were,
maintenance.
tree
And
maintenance.
that would
Which
go in
was
as
all
A.
trees shall be maintained, so they
That would
don't
go in as A.
constitute a hazard to life
Or
and
no,
property
it
or
would go in as
property or
the
disease.
opening
Or
statement before
constitute,
it.
and that's really about maintaining trees, so they don't,
Do you need
they're
this
not a
back again?
hazard.
Yeah, I do, I need, no, I need you guys to stop for 1
Okay,
second. Okay,
Yes, sir.
253-8,
Okay, all trees.
tree and landscape maintenance. Yes,
Okay, all trees so that they're
here's what I have.
healthy.
Trees on public property shall be maintained by the city.
That's a change.
No later.
Well, right now, so
So
the
I'm
city
very
would,
confused at where you got, where are you, what happened to this? We're not doing this,
We haven't gotten to that. We're still up at the beginning. What we decided was we're gonna put in the original, or the current code provision for tree maintenance. We're substituting that now.
Well, here's what I'd like, I mean, I don't know, I'd like to keep, there's something that's missing here. It says, all trees shall be maintained so they are healthy. And that's not in here, that's not in here. This sentence really talks about you have to maintain your trees so they don't hurt people, property, or other trees. It doesn't say anything about keeping them necessarily healthy. It just says keeping them from being a hazard. That's really all that it says.
So
It
you want to
doesn't-
keep them healthy and
I
you
wanna
wanna
keep them
maintain
healthy
them.
and that
Right,
stuff.
I agree with that. I want to go back to trees on public property shall be maintained by the city.
yeah, so everybody who planted a tree on city property with or without permission, including developers, the old golf course, all of a sudden, those are the city's responsibility now?
We had, that's more than we're gonna do in the next minute, so I think we need to shut this down
No,
and hold it for, we're gonna talk about this again.
So who is
continued.
maintaining those trees?
If a developer, say, plants a tree on city property, then it's whoever lives adjacent to the property, so. Like, there's a provision in the current code that if they run out of room with permission of the city, they may plant one of their trees on city property, so much as they take care of the mitigation and
But I
maintenance.
can't prune the tree in front of my restaurant because it's on city property.
Exactly.
Isn't that kind of weird?
There should be a provision, no, you should not be able to prune any city tree, but there should be a provision for people who are permitted to plant trees on city property should be given
Who have been
permission.
given permission to plant trees on
if
city
it's
Should
their
property.
be
tree, they
Permission
planted it.
to prune and maintain it should be included in that,
And
yes.
Sturgis and I disagreed when we did this, when we wrote what
But
we
I've
wrote.
changed my
All
mind.
right.
I've changed my
We
mind.
wrote that if you plant a tree on city property with permission of the city, then the city would maintain it.
And
All right,
Liz has
I'm
kind of said.
I'm sorry,
Right, but
I'm
no,
gonna
I hear you.
call this timeout.
Okay,
But we're getting somewhere.
we are,
So-
but we're
so
running out of time.
We're done with our item number 7, old business, and I'm gonna move on now to item number 8, setting the next meeting. And my interest is having the next meeting tomorrow.
Cool.
And I'm asking to do 9 o'clock.
I'll be here.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, and Susan will not be here.
Susan will not.
Okay. Gentlemen,
I'm divorced, but I guess I could probably,
how do you feel?
my kids aren't gonna.
What's your hours tomorrow?
I'm looking from 9 to 11:30.
9 to 11.
I'm sorry, 9 to, what did I say?
What is it, Ian?
It's not 11:30.
It's
I'm
11.
sorry, yeah, that's when,
It's
that's
9
when
to
the
11.
party begins, right?
2 hours. We gotta get out of here.
Yes,
You're
9
not
to
gonna
11.
get that much done in 2 hours.
9 to 11.
Are we going to be able to accomplish anything?
I hope so.
No, and I'm not being
No, I know.
flip, I just
Yeah.
don't wanna be here for 2 hours
Yeah.
and get one more paragraph.
I hear you.
I think the longer the meetings are, the more we get done.
I totally
When we
agree.
stop and start every hour, nothing gets done. So I think if you're gonna do a meeting, you need to do a long one, and you need to
So,
finish it.
so we can pick some provisions that may not be as controversial as tree density that we might be able to accomplish in 2 hours.
Or does anybody wanna have some homework?
Yeah, let's,
I mean, that's
let's,
just a
let's
thought.
get past them one, then
Okay.
we can talk about
Okay,
more.
okay.
So, interact.
You mean meeting tomorrow?
I mean, I'll be here.
Okay.
I just don't wanna sit here
I
and
hear
not
you.
get through a whole
All
paragraph,
right.
honestly.
Gene?
FYI, it is supposed to snow in the morning.
I'll be here, but I agree with him. I
Yeah.
want to make sure we get something done.
I mean,
I mean, this
I
was
agree with
productive.
you conceptually for this whole project. You know, how do we avoid waiting around on the weeds here?
Well, unfortunately, it's, you know, it is the holiday season, so we can't like
True
do
that.
this. But, I mean, this was the most productive meeting. This is the second one I've been at, and I sat in the audience for the third one.
Yeah.
We've actually accomplished something.
Yeah, I think we have.
And I don't.
And I
know
think we
if
can do
By
something
the time we
tomorrow.
roll in tomorrow and get settled and
Yeah.
all that stuff, are we gonna be able to do anything?
I think we
If
can.
we're gonna go, let's just say we're gonna do
Yeah.
2 sections. The 4 of us that are gonna come in, read those sections ahead of time.
Right.
Know what we're gonna do.
Right.
Right.
That's all we're gonna do is those 2 sections, so whatever it
All
may
right,
be.
so let's take a moment and pick some sections here.
Okay, I'm gonna head out while you guys are doing that.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Liz.
Thank you
Liz, are
so
we
much.
heading in a direction you'd like in here?
I don't know if that's a 1-minute question on my way out.
Do we wanna try to pick off some simple ones?
Yeah,
or
like
do we wanna go
violation-
for some big
Violations and penalties,
ones? Okay,
okay?
you think that's simple.
Yeah.
But what about tree protection?
How about, yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that should
How
be
about
pretty
Tree
straightforward,
protection,
right?
yeah, sure,
mhm.
all right.
Tree planted permits. We can do those
That-
too.
Yeah,
That could
tree
be,
protection and
I'm game to
permits.
do anything you wanna do, but,
Yeah, let's definitely do tree protection and permits.
okay,
Yeah,
all right. Well, let's leave it
Okay.
at that and see what happens.
good, good.
Right, and then if Susan does send something over
Something
tonight,
on,
we can
mixed
least talk
use
about
kind of.
that.
thing.
All right,
I think that is important, quite frankly, and
Okay.
I'm new to this board, that Susan's here.
Yeah.
Before we finalize that section.
all right, so let's talk about January. I know
Not available.
several of you are not,
I am
okay, you're not available
at
for the
all,
whole month.
Whole month.
And Susan, I seem to recall you were
I'm
going pretty
available
much.
after the 20th.
Huh?
I'm going the 2nd to the 20th. I'm available.
The
after
2nd to the 20th. All right. Gentlemen,
I have no plans. Actually,
Gene,
I can't tell you because I'm at my client's whim, whatever they
Okay.
want.
all right.
I can try to meet whatever.
What day is the 20th?
that. Monday.
A Monday.
It's a holiday.
Yeah, it's a holiday.
Besides, that's a holiday. How about the Wednesday, whatever that would be, the 22nd or whatever?
Yep.
Huh? January 22nd.
But you're not here, Sturgeon.
I won't be for the whole month.
what do we plan to accomplish on the 22nd?
I'm hoping, my goal was to get through this whole thing by tomorrow. That ain't gonna happen. So the next opportunity for us to do this is gonna be the 22nd. So it would be on that occasion.
Or we wait till the 5th when.
I think we need Sturgis here.
Or we wait till the 5th of February and.
Let's do that. Let's
have
wait
all
till,
of us
All right.
here.
yeah, let's wait till
Yeah.
Okay.
February.
Maybe tomorrow.
That's the next scheduled meeting.
After
February
tomorrow.
5th.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
And then can we do a 4-hour meeting?
Let's, yeah.
I'll try
I'm
to.
good with it.
Ann, do you know what the schedule is for the 5th of February?
Not seeing anything scheduled yet.
You wanna go all day?
Well, I mean, we've got that date pinned down already. It's just a question of, if we said from 9 until 1,
Works for me.
is
I
that,
don't have anything else scheduled.
okay,
Okay,
all right. No luncheons or anything? Yeah, okay.
can we bring a lunch in?
Why don't we bring lunch and go all day and finish it?
What?
Plan what in?
Why don't we go all day and finish it and just get it done?
Yeah,
Do
well,
you
that's what
wanna
I'm
do
saying.
Like a 10 to 3 or 10 to 4 and.
I'm all for getting stuff,
Yeah.
and
when
let's-
you get it in
and
your
if we could-
mind and
if
you
we're
get
done
going.
early, we
I'll
can
go as
early.
long as you want to.
Yeah,
If you want to
good,
go all
but
day,
good.
I'll,
It's like a
9 to,
construction job, if you gotta get your tools out
9 to
every day before
4:30.
you work, you're not gonna finish it.
I
You're
can
better
say
off
9 to
just Set up
4:30.
once and get it done.
9 to 4:30.
Great,
That's what I,
Cool.
weather,
cool beans. Thank you very much, you guys. Putting
Pack
that
a
off
bag
tomorrow.
lunch.
so do you still wanna join and do something tomorrow?
Or do you wanna skip tomorrow?
Yes.
You sure?
Yeah, I'd like to do a couple hours tomorrow.
I vote
Okay,
On-
let's
on-
do, let's
On
do
protection
these two
and
Do
protection.
those
these
two
two.
sections.
Yep, let's do those two.
Okay.
Great.
Are you
Thank
doing,
you.
are you doing penalties?
No,
No,
we're
protection
doing
and,
protection
tree
and
plan.
plans and permits.
All right.
Good.
So the goal is gonna be to get this finalized February 5th.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep,
So none of that's the mitigation part, right?
correct.
Alright, cause I don't trust you all with that
I know.
mitigation thing while
Alright.
I'm going.
Can you,
So if we're done, I'm gonna adjourn. We
I
have
have
some,
one more comment.
go to the order, okay?
Because it's kind of making my eyes sort of see all these revised redlined things. Can you send us everything that you typed up today?
Yes, and I
And that's
can,
gonna be the
do you want me to email it to
foundation?
you, or do you want me to print it out and drop it off?
No, just email.
Let me ask you this, in the version that you were working in,
Yes.
what version is the one you're
Hoyte's.
working in? It's Hoyt, yes, please, do send that to us.
I have
So
Hoyts
just-
without the red lines. I cannot get the red lines in mine
Okay.
unless you
That's fine.
email me directly.
Okay, Hoyt,
So
what do you
here's-
mean without the red line?
It doesn't show all this red line stuff.
Okay,
But the-
so
but the-
It's
If
in
you-
there, the content's
The
in there, but the
content's all
color
there,
is
but
not
the
in there.
color isn't.
It would
in
not,
there.
for
if
some
you
reason,
will,
come
if
across.
you will
Okay.
identify that document,
Right,
That'd be
I will
great.
do that, and when you look at it, it's going to
well,
come
I'm
to you
gonna
like
tell you
this,
what I'd like you to
okay?
identify.
Okay,
Hopefully, it's gonna come to you like this.
right.
If it's blue, you're done.
Okay, the blue is what we said.
And I swear I didn't blue anything out that you didn't go over.
Okay,
So if it's blue, you have agreed and you are done that part,
okay,
okay?
Yep.
All right, so you,
cool.
I reserve the right to.
all right?
No, but I mean, that's gonna be
Yeah.
what we're gonna work with tomorrow and
Correct.
forward, not
Yeah.
all these
Right.
other things.
Yeah, yeah.
So if it's blue, it's pretty much done, but
All right.
that's it.
So what is that document called right at the moment?
Right now, 2019 LOC tree code updated December 10th, 2019.
Okay.
But I have not been to,
So-
I have
so-
not been to the
so-
committee
Put a
meeting.
bird-
So put, at the end of it, put SW space V1,
SW
V1.
V1.
No, space in there.
What's
Hey,
SW?
Space. Susan Wood,
Oh,
but don't tell anybody.
okay.
I mean, if you like three initials, you can put the other initial in there too.
I will,
Put the T in there.
that's okay. I'm good.
Just like I already.
All right,
back
so-
out of the meeting.
It is 4:26. Turn off the red light. We're adjourning this meeting.